Chapter 1. The Divine Level Point Allocation System. Rapid cultivation advancement. Shun Lian traversed into a fantastical realm, acquiring an infinite point allocation system. Struggling to elevate his cultivation? Simply at 100 points, achieving complete mastery in no time. Finding it difficult to comprehend sword intent? At 1,000 points, and effortlessly unlock the sword domain. Is the pinnacle of martial arts elusive? Then let us attempt a tenfold draw. Consciousness transfer in progress. Physical body assessment. Original host deceased. Internal structure severely damaged. Initiating repair. Repair complete. System bound. In the boundless darkness, Shun Lian felt an incessant cacophony of cold mechanical sounds resonating deep within his consciousness, causing an unbearable headache. This is exasperating. Instinctively, he let out a loud shout and abruptly sat up. Gradually opening his eyelids, gentle light flooded his vision. Shun Lian remained in a daze for a brief moment before he slowly regained his clarity. What is happening? Where am I? He turned his head, surveying the unfamiliar surroundings. The azure sky, white clouds, and refreshing breeze greeted him. The verdant grassland stretched infinitely, swaying gently in the wind. Wasn't I just in Las Vegas? Embroiled in a conflict with the Sanling gang? It seems I was shot just moments ago. How did I end up here? Confusion flickered in Shun Lian's eyes. At that moment, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over him as a torrent of memories surged forth from the depths of his mind, merging into one. After a brief interval, the amalgamation concluded, and Shun Lian began to comprehend his predicament. So, I have traversed worlds. He murmured softly. It appears I have perished and my soul has transitioned into this realm. This is a world of fantasy, where the strong are revered and ordinary individuals are regarded as insignificant. In this realm, those of formidable cultivation can move mountains and fill seas, seize stars and capture moons. Embodying terror itself, the immense individual power inevitably leads to a collapse of societal order. Compared to the civilized world of my past life, this place is marked by greater danger, cruelty, and mercilessness. However, the once dominant Shun Lian felt no trepidation or hesitation at this revelation. On the contrary, as he grasped the fabric of this world, an exhilarating light sparkled in his eyes. The chaotic nature of this fantastical realm is undeniably far more thrilling than the orderly life of the underground. Such a life promises excitement, does it not? A faint smile crept upon Shun Lian's lips as he began to explore the memories of his original self. Coincidentally, the previous host also bore the name Shun Lian, a disciple of the Qingyun sect, a dominant force in the southern region of the Yan Kingdom. Although he had escaped the fate of an ordinary person, his innate talent for cultivation was lamentably low. Among the hundreds of thousands of outer disciples in the Qingyun sect, Shun Lian was but a bottom-tier existence, having only just reached the third level of body refinement. He had recently ventured out on a collection mission for the sect, when he fortuitously encountered a mystical herb known as the Xianling grass. The initial step in martial arts cultivation is body refinement, strengthening the physical form. Only upon perfecting this can one transition to internal cultivation. Achieving perfection in internal cultivation allows for the foundation to be established, paving the way toward the ultimate golden core path. The Xianling grass serves to assist body refinement practitioners in swiftly completing their transition to internal cultivation, making it exceedingly valuable among lower-tier cultivators. Naturally, the original host was elated to have found such a treasure. Yet, tragically, before he could even warm it in his grasp, it was forcibly claimed by his senior brother, Wang Hui. Wang Hui possessed the formidable strength of the 8th layer of body refinement, bolstered by the fact that he had a relative who was an inner disciple of the Qingyun sect. In terms of both cultivation and social standing, he was far beyond the reach of the original owner. The original owner was an orphan, fortunate enough to have been taken in by the sect after an encounter with an outer sect elder. Aware of his inability to contend with Wang Hui, he obediently offered up the Xianling grass. He believed that by relinquishing the treasure, the matter would reach a satisfactory conclusion. Little did he know, Wang Hui harbored a malicious heart, fearing that the original owner might divulge the existence of the Xianling grass and attract the avarice of others. He sought to eliminate any future risks. After accepting the Xianling grass, Wang Hui suddenly launched a treacherous assault. The original owner, caught completely off guard, was struck down with a single palm, meeting a most unjust demise. Soon after, Shun Lian found himself transmigrated into this body. How despicable Wang Hui truly was. After perusing the memories of the original owner, Shun Lian could not help but shake his head in lamentation. It was a purely hellish beginning. Given his resurrection, returning to the sect would undoubtedly mean Wang Hui would not let him off easily. Yet, he found himself unable to explain. He could not simply tell Wang Hui that this Shun Lian was not the same as the previous one, imploring him for mercy. Not only would Wang Hui be unlikely to believe such a claim, even if he did, it was not in Shun Lian's nature to grovel. What should he do? To flee right after transmigrating? With his current meager strength, leaving the sect might prove even more perilous. Shun Lian furrowed his brow, troubled by these thoughts. Ding. Binding complete. Infinite skill point system activated. At that moment, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his mind. A system? As a flicker of realization struck him, Shun Lian recalled the barrage of information he had vaguely heard in his mind earlier. He hastily delved into his consciousness to investigate further. Upon summoning the system panel, it unfolded before him. Infinite skill point system. Host. Shun Lian. Cultivation. Third layer of body refinement. Techniques. Body refinement technique. Qing Yun sword technique. 100 steps fist. Skill points. 30 note. During the body refinement stage, each technique can yield 10 skill points, with multipliers increasing upon reaching higher realms. Note 2. All skill points can be allocated at the hostess' discretion. The panel was straightforward, and Shun Lian quickly grasped its essence. In the technique section, each martial art he had practiced was marked with a flashing plus sign, clear and comprehensible. Seeing this, Shun Lian pondered briefly before attempting to allocate points to the body refinement technique. With each click, he felt a warm current surging within him, and his cultivation level continuously shifted. 4th layer of body refinement, 5th layer, 6th layer, 10th layer, peak, perfect completion. After clicking 10 times and expending 10 skill points, Shun Lian's cultivation soared to perfect completion of the body refinement stage. Feeling the surge of newfound strength coursing through his body, he realized this was no mere illusion. Slowly clenching his fist, he noted how pathetically weak he had been prior to this transformation. He had not anticipated that the 10th layer was not the finality, as there were indeed realms of peak and perfect completion that he had never heard of before. It seemed everyone else merely prepared to transition to internal cultivation after reaching the 10th layer. Shun Lian murmured to himself, shifting his gaze towards the Qing Yun sword technique and 100 steps fist. Having just expended 10 skill points, he still had 20 remaining. He then proceeded to allocate points to the Qing Yun sword technique. After spending 6 skill points, the Qing Yun sword technique displayed that it had reached the level of perfect completion. Next, he turned his attention to the 100 steps fist. The original owner may not have extensively practiced martial arts, as it took 9 skill points to achieve perfection in his boxing technique. All 3 martial arts have progressed to the next level. Contemplating the remaining 5 skill points, Shun Lian pondered whether further enhancements were possible after reaching perfection. Acting on impulse, he attempted to allocate points to the perfected body tempering technique. As before, each point infused his body with a warm current, continuously augmenting his strength and physical resilience. The level description of the body tempering technique transformed. Now reading, body tempering technique perfected, enhanced, with the term enhanced appended. Allocating all 5 skill points to the body tempering technique, Shun Lian felt his physical form had undeniably strengthened by more than a mere level. However, the extent of this enhancement remained uncertain, as there were no prior examples for comparison. He could only vaguely sense that if he were to encounter an ordinary practitioner at the 10th level of body refinement, they would likely be no match for him. With this thought, excitement sparkled in Shun Lian's eyes, gazing at his now depleted skill points. He couldn't help but feel a lingering desire for more. Unfortunately, the skill points were rather scarce, totaling only 30. However, as an outer disciple of the Qing Yun sect, with each elevation in body refinement, he was entitled to select a martial art technique from the scripture repository. Given his current level, he should be able to choose 7 techniques anew. This meant a potential accumulation of 70 skill points. 70 points would undoubtedly lead to another significant leap in his power. With this notion, anticipation filled Shun Lian's eyes. In a swift motion, he sprang from the ground and, guided by memory, made his way towards the Qing Yun sect. Chapter 2. Doubling the Gains, a narrow path with enemies in the southern region of the Yin Kingdom. 3 prominent sects are renowned, with the Qing Yun sect reigning supreme among them. Numerous smaller sects and factions exist, predominantly under the aegis of these 3 major sections. Unlike the past life, here, the power of the monarchy lies in the hands of formidable sections. Ordinary townsfolk depend on these sects for survival. Only under the protection of a sect can mortals be shielded from the ravages of monstrous beasts. The Qing Yun sect is situated on the majestic Chongshan Mountain, encompassing a vast area of several hundred miles, safeguarded by countless prohibitive formations. Shun Lian re-entered the Qing Yun sect, using his outer disciple token. He observed numerous disciples bustling about the square, either undertaking tasks or engaging in camaraderie, a scene reminiscent of a grand metropolis from his past life. According to his recollections, Shun Lian bypassed the quiet rooms and headed directly to the scripture repository. By this time, a considerable number of disciples were already queued at the entrance. Naturally, Shun Lian fell in line at the back, and as the queue progressed, he soon arrived before the grand doors. The elder guarding the repository glanced at him, his voice devoid of inflection, inquiring for his disciple token. Shun Lian respectfully presented the token. The elder used the token to scan a recording device, noting down the information and confirming its authenticity before casually returning it to Shun Lian. Go and strike the stone, the elder instructed, gesturing towards a massive stone tablet standing nearby. With a slight bow, Shun Lian approached the stone tablet and stood before it. The realm of body refinement was somewhat unique, as it had not yet officially crossed into the threshold of cultivation, rendering the accurate assessment of strength through spiritual awareness impossible. The notion of qi sensing is utterly ludicrous. Without even beginning to cultivate qi, how could one possess qi sensing? Thus, at this stage, practitioners must rely solely on their physical prowess for level assessment. The Qingyun sect has specifically crafted a stone tablet for disciples to strike, evaluating their body refinement level based on the depth of the imprints left behind. Other sects employ similar mechanisms. After taking his stance, Shun Lian gradually exhaled, calming his mind. He silently recalled the sensation of having augmented his body refinement to the 10th level and, channeling that initial strength, unleashed a powerful punch. Bang! The stone tablet resonated with a dull thud, revealing a punch mark over an inch deep, which then slowly mended, restoring its surface. Oh, is this truly the 10th level of body refinement? Observing the imprint, the elder in charge of the pavilion revealed a flicker of surprise, albeit just a fleeting one. The 10th level of body refinement is immensely coveted among ordinary outer disciples, yet within the vast expanse of the Qingyun sect, it is not uncommon. What genuinely astonished the elder was that, through the records of the testing artifact, he knew Shun Lian had last visited the scripture pavilion 8 months prior, at which time his body refinement stood at merely the 3rd level. To ascend from the 3rd to the 10th level within 8 months could be deemed a remarkable leap into the realm of prodigies. Little did he know that Shun Lian had not exerted his full strength, having only utilized about 50% of his power. If Shun Lian were to unleash his full might, the extraordinary physical strength far exceeding that of a typical 10th level practitioner would be apparent, leaving the elder at a loss for an explanation. Very well, you may enter. You are permitted to peruse the 7 techniques without time constraints. Should you not finish, you may continue on your next visit, but remember, once chosen, they cannot be changed. Do you understand? The elder stated solemnly. The disciple nodded respectfully, acknowledging his understanding, and proceeded to enter the grand door from the side. The interior of the scripture pavilion was vast, adorned with an array of martial arts techniques, numbering in the thousands. However, due to the fact that outer disciples had yet to cultivate qi, all these techniques were uniformly of the lowest yellow grade. Nevertheless, Shun Lian found himself irresistibly drawn to them. To others, these were merely the most rudimentary martial skills. But he understood that mastery lies not in quantity, but in selecting what suits oneself. To him, each technique represented potential skill points. With over 1,000 techniques to explore, if he were to examine them all, he could potentially amass over 10,000 skill points in an instant. Unfortunately, this was merely a fanciful thought. The Qingyun sect maintained stringent control over the transmission of techniques. The entire scripture pavilion was ensorcelled, and any disciple perusing the techniques would be recorded. Upon reaching the limit of records, the array would expel them. Shun Lian, aware of the sect's regulations, did not rush. After a moment of contemplation, he slowly traversed the bookshelves, perusing the introductions to martial techniques. After an entire hour of exploration, he selected 7 techniques, 3 sword styles, 2 fist techniques, 1 leg technique, and 1 body technique. This selection was the result of careful deliberation on his part. Having long admired the heroic figures in martial arts novels who wielded swords across the rivers and lakes, he held a particular fondness for sword techniques. As for fist and leg techniques, he considered them as necessary complements for situations where he could not wield a sword. The art of movement requires no elaborate explanation. It is not only complementary to leg techniques, but also serves its purpose in both combat and evasive maneuvers. Naturally, it must not be neglected. After selecting his martial skills, Shun Lian settled cross-legged and began to scrutinize the content meticulously, committing it to memory. Once he had thoroughly memorized everything, he summoned the system panel. Indeed, in the column of techniques, the 7 martial arts he had just chosen had appeared, and his skill points had similarly increased to 70. Satisfied, Shun Lian proceeded to allocate points to each martial art. In a brief moment, all 7 techniques reached perfection. Insights flooded into his mind as if he had been practicing for countless years, becoming exceedingly familiar and adept, as if it were second nature. At this point, 16 skill points remained unspent. He directed all of them towards the body refinement technique. A warm current coursed through his body, significantly enhancing his physical strength. Upon exhausting all skill points, Shun Lian felt himself brimming with explosive power. While he could not precisely gauge his newfound strength, he was certain it surpassed his previous capabilities by more than double. Content. He returned the 7 martial arts to their original places, turned, and exited the scripture pavilion, intending to practice in the quiet room and assess the results. Outside, numerous disciples were queued up. Shen Lian, wishing to avoid drawing attention, departed from the side. However, fate had other plans, as he soon ran into an acquaintance. Shen Lian, a low voice called from beside him. Turning to look, he saw a young man, similarly clad in a blue robe denoting an outer sect disciple, though adorned with a seal insignia at the collar, gazing at him intently. Wang Hui. Shen Lian's heart stirred with surprise. It seemed fate had a sense of irony. This young man was none other than the culprit who had recently ambushed the original owner of this body. Brother Wang. As thoughts raced through his mind, Shen Lian offered a respectful nod. Indeed, it is you. You seem to be faring well, Wang Hui remarked, studying Shen Lian with an expression that betrayed his astonishment. He distinctly recalled having fatally ambushed Shen Lian just hours earlier. How was it possible for him to return to the sect unscathed? Confusion swirled within him. Initially, he had doubted his own eyes, but upon calling out, he realized it truly was Shen Lian. What on earth is happening? Am I seeing things? Wang Hui pondered quickly, scrutinizing Shen Lian closely. Something felt amiss. Although he had heard tales of powerful cultivators who could preserve their souls through secret arts even after their physical forms perished, it was evident that Shen Lian could not be among them. He was merely at the 3rd level of body refinement, and his current appearance did not suggest any physical damage. Could it be that he had encountered some fortuitous event, acquiring a treasure that could swiftly mend his injuries? At this realization, Wang Hui's eyes gleamed with greed. Shen Lian, why have you suddenly returned? Have you completed your sect mission? Wang Hui inquired, adopting a brotherly demeanor as he spoke in a calm tone. After the brief moment of astonishment, he had regained his composure. Regardless of the reason behind Shen Lian's miraculous return, it was imperative that he uncover the truth. Regarding Shen Lian's fearlessness in facing accusations from his sect about harming his fellow disciples, he remained untroubled. After all, he had the backing of his family. It was improbable that the sect would take action against him for the misdeeds of a mere outer disciple devoid of talent. If treasures were indeed involved, his family would be even less inclined to relinquish their interests. This matter was far from resolved. Upon hearing Wang Hui's inquiry, Shen Lian recollected his past as per the original owner's memories. He had previously accepted a task from the sect and ventured out with Wang Hui to gather herbs, which led to this predicament. I knew you wouldn't finish so soon. How could you return without completing the task? Wang Hui's face was cold as he grunted, seizing Shen Lian and dragging him towards the sect. Brother Wang, I'm feeling unwell. Could we postpone this until tomorrow? Shen Lian feigned terror, hastily shaking his head in refusal. Yet his body offered no resistance. Subtly, a glimmer of determination flickered in his eyes. Wang Hui, oblivious to these nuances, continued to drag Shen Lian as if he were a mere chick. Other disciples on the path observed the scene with curiosity but did not approach. Wang Hui paid no heed to their gazes, offering only a nod to acquaintances as a form of greeting. They halted upon reaching a secluded spot not far from where Shen Lian had previously been attacked. Wang Hui surveyed the area, noting its desolation and lack of onlookers, before carelessly tossing Shen Lian to the ground. You, my friend, are rather fortunate, he remarked coldly, his facade stripped away to reveal a face brimming with greed. To have survived such grievous injuries and recovered so swiftly. Speak, what is the secret behind this? Brother Wang, do you not fear the sect's wrath for treating a fellow disciple in such a manner? Shen Lian rose calmly, the facade of terror vanishing as he dusted himself off. Speaking softly, nonsense. Do you really think the sect cares about a mere outer disciple like you? Besides, there is no one else here but us. After I eliminate you, my words alone will suffice. Wang Hui scoffed, a smirk dancing on his lips. Let it not be said that I do not offer you a chance. Reveal the secret to your recovery, and perhaps I may spare your life. And if I choose silence? Shen Lian challenged. Silence. Wang Hui paused, then erupted into raucous laughter as if he had heard a grand jest. After a fit of laughter, he jeered, Boy, do you think acquiring a treasure that heals wounds makes you invincible? If I were to sever your head, do you believe you could still recover? He cast a disdainful glance at Shen Lian, puffing up with arrogance. Hurry now, my patience is limited. Are you in such a rush to meet your maker? I had intended to toy with you a while longer. Shen Lian merely shook his head with a smile. What did you say? Wang Hui's heart raced with alarm at those words. At that moment, he finally sensed something was amiss. Shen Lian's behavior was exceedingly strange, displaying not a hint of terror. He appeared rather composed, as if emboldened by some unseen assurance. Could it be that he had concealed accomplices nearby? This notion struck Wang Hui first, prompting him to swiftly glance around. However, upon closer inspection, There were no hiding places to be found. He was convinced that only he and Shun Lian occupied this space. With this thought, Wang Hui felt a slight relief, soon followed by a sense of embarrassment for his earlier flustered demeanor. His expression hardened, and in a chilling tone, he remarked, "Humph, toying with the supernatural. Boy, this is a predicament of your own making." Drawing his long sword with a swift motion, he charged forward without waiting for Shun Lian to speak, the blade glinting ominously as it aimed for Shun Lian's legs. He intended to sever Shun Lian's limbs first, before gradually extracting answers. The strength of an 8th-tier body cultivator was indeed formidable, and combined with his agility, he moved with remarkable speed. The sword's arc was seamless and fluid. If this had been the former Shun Lian, he would have been unable to evade such a strike, perhaps even failing to perceive Wang Hui's movements. Yet now, the swift strike appeared to Shun Lian as if unfolding in slow motion, rife with openings. How truly weak he is. Shun Lian shook his head, standing leisurely in place. Just as Wang Hui's blade approached, he casually stepped to the left, effortlessly avoiding the sword's trajectory. Not waiting for Wang Hui to react, Shun Lian clenched his right fist and swung it upward from his waist. Bang! A dull thud resonated, accompanied by a chilling scream. It was as if Wang Hui had been struck by a train. His forward momentum abruptly halted before he was sent hurtling backwards, landing several feet away. Even while airborne, he coughed up copious amounts of blood, a vivid crimson arc painting the air. How is this possible? On the ground, Wang Hui's eyes widened, fixated on Shun Lian, disbelief etched across his face. His chest had caved in completely, his complexion pale, clearly struggling for breath, unable to utter a coherent sentence. Curious as to how I have suddenly grown so strong, Shun Lian inquired with a faint smile, leisurely approaching Wang Hui and looking down upon him. Wang Hui, barely holding on to life, could not articulate his thoughts, yet his expression revealed a profound desire for answers. Regrettably, Shun Lian had no intention of revealing anything, even knowing moreover, this merely pertains to physical strength. In the heat of battle, the true might of my perfected martial skills remains incalculable. After a brief moment of contemplation, Shun Lian grew disinterested and began to rummage through Wang Hui's corpse, discovering a storage bag. Chapter 4. Eradicating Evidence. Outer Sect Steward Wang Yanglai. Upon opening the storage bag, Shun Lian found it contained a variety of trivial items, survival tools, food, clothing, and the like, none of which held significant value. Nonetheless, compared to his own possessions, it was quite a trove. Shun Lian accepted all without hesitation, collecting everything into his own satchel. Upon tallying his findings, he noted that the most valuable items included 3 low-grade spirit stones, a gold ingot, and several hundred taels of silver. However, the Xianling grass that had been seized from him earlier was nowhere to be found, leaving him unaware of its hiding place within Wang Hui's belongings. After a thorough search yielded no results, he resigned himself to the loss. Having secured his spoils, Shun Lian gathered some dry branches, placed Wang Hui's corpse atop them, and ignited it with a fire starter, ensuring complete obliteration of all evidence. Lacking the ability to harness spiritual fire due to his untrained qi, he resorted to this primitive method of cremation. Fortunately, the outcome remained consistent. As he reduced Wang Hui's remains to ashes, rendering them unrecognizable, he cast aside the long sword Wang Hui had wielded, bringing this matter to a close. The sword was a standard-issue weapon from the Qingyun sect, one that each outer sect disciple possessed, as did Shun Lian himself. Fearing that Wang Hui might have left some mark on the blade that could lead back to him, he chose to discard it entirely. Once everything was in order, Shun Lian stood silently in contemplation. His and Wang Hui's departure from the Qingyun sect had not gone unnoticed. Concealing such an event was beyond possibility. Yet, as Wang Hui had previously remarked, the sect would scarcely concern itself with mere outer disciples. The only potential complication lay with Wang Hui's family, known to have deep roots within the sect, with considerable influence. However, the specifics of their power remained unclear to Shun Lian based on the original owner's previous experiences. Shun Lian meticulously reflected on the entire sequence of events, ensuring that no incriminating evidence lingered and that all traces were thoroughly eradicated. When the Wang family eventually discovered Wang Hui's disappearance and commenced their inquiries, even if they found him, there would be no evidence to implicate Shun Lian. Of course, even with this assurance, complete safety was not guaranteed. In half a month's time, the Qingyun sect would hold its annual selection for inner disciples. Given his current strength, ascending to the ranks of inner disciples would be effortless. By that time, even if the Wang family harbored suspicions, they would be reluctant to act against him. After all, inner disciples represented the absolute foundation of the Qingyun sect, beyond the reach of arbitrary treatment by others. Thus, he resolved to refrain from returning to the sect for the next month and instead seek experience in the wilderness, with the prospect of earning some money being an added benefit. as there was little to gain in terms of improvement within the sect. Accumulating sufficient wealth to purchase martial techniques externally could potentially enhance his abilities. Having made his decision, Shun Lian turned away from the direction of the Qingyun sect and continued his journey into the wild. Not far ahead lay Xiangyong Town, a modest settlement affiliated with the Qingyun sect. At the edge of the shadow forest, most of the passers-by are cultivators, hunting ferocious beasts, peddling materials, or gathering rare treasures of heaven and earth. Within the town of Xianyong, a marketplace exists, occasionally offering low-tier martial techniques for sale. Shun Lian's objective is the shadow forest. He intends to hunt ferocious beasts, testing his strength while also gathering materials, hoping for a stroke of luck. Passing through Xianyong, Shun Lian first seeks a tavern to rest and replenish his energy before officially embarking towards the shadow forest. Due to its proximity to the Qingyun sect, where masters frequently organize their disciples for sweeping expeditions, the more formidable beasts have been nearly eradicated, transforming this area into a sacred training ground for lower-tier disciples. Shun Lian, appearing relaxed, soon enters the realm of the shadow forest. As he ventures deeper, the strength of the beast he encounters gradually escalates from the initial level of 4 or 5 in body refinement to those boasting power at 7 or 8 levels. His expression starts to grow serious. The weaker beasts do not warrant his attention. Even if he were to slay them, the materials obtained would fetch little silver, resulting in a waste of time. Fortunately, it is not long before a deep, resonant roar echoes through the forest, finally leading Shun Lian to a beast worthy of engagement. Before him stands a colossal tiger known as the Purple Flame Whirlwind Tiger, distinguished by its purple stripes and renowned for its swift attack speed and immense strength. An adult specimen possesses strength exceeding 10 levels of body refinement. Compared to humans, the physical prowess of ferocious beasts is superior, making it exceedingly difficult for an average cultivator at the 10th level of body refinement to defeat this Purple Flame Whirlwind Tiger. The tiger growls lowly, its gaze fixated on Shun Lian, regarding him as an intruder in its territory. Shun Lian, feeling the unmistakable aura of menace directed at him, grips the hilt of his sword, equally unyielding as he meets the tiger's stare. Suddenly, the whirlwind tiger emits a furious roar, leaping high into the air, raising its massive paw to strike at Shun Lian. The enormous claw is nearly the size of Shun Lian's torso. As Shun Lian tenses, ready to draw his sword, he hesitates for a moment, ultimately deciding against it. Instead, he crouches low and lunges forward. The whirlwind tiger, mid-leap and unable to alter its trajectory, careens over Shun Lian. In that instant, Shun Lian clenches his fist, rising with all his might, delivering a devastating punch to the tiger's abdomen. A thunderous crack resounds, accompanied by the beast's mournful wail, as crimson splatters through the air. With a thud, the tiger's carcass crashes to the ground. Turning to observe, Shun Lian is astonished to find that his single punch has cleaved the Purple Flame Whirlwind Tiger in two. Is this truly the might of my full strength? He stands momentarily dazed, staring at his own fist, struggling to believe the scene before him. It is worth noting that this Purple Flame Whirlwind Tiger is twice the size of a tiger from his previous life, its physical resilience incomparable. Has a mere punch truly severed it in twain? After a prolonged moment of stupor, he finally comprehends the reality of his current power. Regrettably, the exquisite tiger skin is now lost. The intact hide of the Purple Flame Whirlwind Tiger would have commanded a substantial price. Shun Lian shook his head in sorrow. The ground lay in disarray, the massive corpse of the tiger splattered with blood and scattered innards, exuding a foul stench. Frowning slightly, Shun Lian gritted his teeth and collected the tiger's fangs and claws before continuing his journey deeper into the shadow forest. Meanwhile, within the Qingyun sect, beside a cluster of quaint wooden cabins, a figure clad in a bright yellow robe suddenly appeared. This man, with a pale visage and a stern expression, emanated an aura of authority without uttering a word. The wooden cabins served as the quarters for the outer disciples of the Qingyun sect. Upon inspecting the markings, the middle-aged man located his target and called out in a low voice, "Wang Hui, come forth." There was no response from within the cabin. The man furrowed his brow slightly, approached the door, and pushed it open, only to find the interior completely empty, devoid of even a single shadow. What is going on? Why isn't this boy obediently waiting here? Why has he gone wandering? The middle-aged man muttered, visibly displeased. As he stepped out of the cabin, a disciple wearing a blue robe happened to pass by. Startled to see the man, he quickly bowed respectfully. "Greetings, esteemed steward." "Yes, no need for formalities." The middle-aged man replied with a casual nod. The bright yellow robe signified his status as a steward of the outer sect. However, the disciple was unaware that this man also held another identity. He was Wang Hui's father, Wang Yanglai. Chapter 5. Interrogation yielding no results. A vengeful act, I must inquire. Do you know the disciple Wang Hui who resides in this quiet chamber? As the outer disciple straightened his posture, he heard Wang Yanglia's inquiry. He quickly bowed again and respectfully responded, reporting to the esteemed steward, I am acquainted with Wang Hui. Why is Wang Hui not in the quiet chamber? Wang Yanglai continued his questioning. I am uncertain. The disciple pondered for a moment before saying, however, I did see senior brother Wang Hui at noon. He left with another outer disciple, Shun Lian. It seemed they were on a collection task for the sect. A collection task? Are you certain? Wang Yanglia's brow furrowed. The disciple hesitated. I cannot be entirely certain, but I did indeed see him depart the sect with Shun Lian. Very well, you may leave. Wang Yanglai gestured dismissively, noting the disciple's inability to provide further information. The disciple bowed once more before turning to leave. As a father, Wang Yanglai was acutely aware of his son's character. Wang Hui typically shirked sect duties, especially during such critical times. Something must have occurred that he deemed more pressing, prompting him to leave the quiet chamber ahead of time. Never mind, I shall address this tomorrow, Wang Yanglai decided, aware that as a steward he had many responsibilities and could not afford to linger here idly. Unable to ascertain the cause of his son's absence, he returned, planning to confront Wang Hui directly the following day. However, by then, Wang Hui had already been reduced to ashes, and there was no possibility of his return. The next day, Wang Yanglai returned once more, only to discover his son had still not returned to the sect. A sense of unease began to creep into his heart, yet he had not yet contemplated the worst. It was only after 3 or 4 consecutive days without news of Wang Hui that he finally sensed something was amiss. His son was likely in grave danger. As this thought crossed his mind, Wang Yanglia's expression turned profoundly cold. He searched high and low and eventually discovered that his son had ventured out with an outer sect disciple named Shun Lian, after which they never returned to the sect. What could have transpired? Perhaps Shun Lian was the only one privy to the truth. Regrettably, Shun Lian had also vanished without a trace, making matters even more perplexing. Wang Yanglai, exercising his patience, waited another week, yet still saw no sign of them. He could no longer restrain himself. He approached the outer sect management office to find records concerning Shun Lian, activated the recording stone, memorized Shun Lian's visage, and subsequently set out to search for him. Meanwhile, Shun Lian remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil unfolding around him, wholly immersed in his cultivation. For over 10 consecutive days, he spent the majority of his time within the shadow forest, relentlessly hunting various magical beasts. His mastery of the 9 Gates martial techniques deepened his familiarity with his own combat prowess. The successive hunts gradually honed a unique, chilling aura about him. Suddenly, within the forest, a flash of cold light streaked through the air like lightning, only to vanish in an instant. A resounding thud followed, echoing the sound of a heavy object hitting the ground. Shun Lian sheathed his sword, exuding an effortless grace. Behind him lay the lifeless form of a fox, half his height, now sprawled on the ground. The fox's fur was an exquisite shade of fiery red, smooth to the touch, with not a single wound on its body, save for a bloodied hole where its left eye once was, from which crimson liquid flowed freely. Had there been any onlookers, they would surely be astonished, questioning their own perception. This fox, known as the Mirage Flying Fox, possessed a formidable cultivation level of the 10th layer of Body Refinement. While its raw strength was unremarkable, its speed was astonishingly swift. Due to its elusive nature, the value of its pelt was exceedingly high. Typically, a cultivator at the Body Refinement stage would struggle to even catch a glimpse of such a creature. Yet, Shun Lian not only dispatched it but did so with remarkable precision, piercing its eye with a single strike. Such prowess was truly commendable. It would be prudent to sell this creature. He could likely acquire another martial technique with the proceeds. Gazing at the lifeless Mirage Flying Fox, a satisfied expression graced Shun Lian's face. After honing his skills in the shadow forest for over 10 days, he had sold the materials from his kills, acquiring 2 martial techniques in total. Both were of the low-grade yellow-tier sword techniques, which he had mastered and perfected. Perhaps due to his extensive practice with sword techniques, his comprehension had significantly improved. These 2 sword techniques only required 14 skill points to reach full mastery, leaving him with 6 points, all of which he invested into his Body Refinement technique. Regrettably, the external cultivation methods available for purchase were still excessively priced, lacking in quality. Otherwise, being a rogue cultivator would have its advantages, offering greater freedom. Shun Lian pondered briefly before shaking his head. He stored the body of the Mirage Flying Fox in his storage pouch and calculated the time. The inner sect selection for disciples at Qingyun sect was soon to commence. He promptly resolved to return to Xianyong town, exchange his martial techniques, and then return to the sect for the selection process. As he journeyed forward, an innate aura of lethality radiated from him, deterring ordinary magical beasts from approaching. He successfully reached the outskirts of the shadow forest, and as he ventured forth, A bright yellow figure suddenly appeared ahead, swiftly making its way into the forest. Upon observing the formal attire of the individual before him, Shun Lian promptly stood at attention. Bowing respectfully, the figure swept past him, initially unnoticed. Yet, after a few steps, a soft gasp escaped the lips of the stranger, who abruptly turned back. "Raise your head," commanded the man clad in a vibrant yellow robe. Shun Lian complied, his gaze meeting the stern visage of a middle-aged man. Though he did not recognize the individual, he was aware that the attire denoted the status of an outer sect steward of the Qingyun sect. However, upon scrutinizing Shun Lian's features, the man's eyes ignited with a fierce intensity. This man was none other than Wang Yonglai, the father of Wang Hui. Having ventured away from the Qingyun sect for several days without uncovering any leads, he had initially overlooked Shun Lian. Considering the multitude of outer disciples from the sect who ventured into the shadow forest for training, yet he felt an odd familiarity in Shun Lian's form, prompting him to return for a closer inspection, and to his surprise, it was indeed Shun Lian. "Are you Shun Lian?" Wang Yonglai inquired in a deep voice. "Yes, esteemed steward, that is indeed me," Shun Lian replied, a look of confusion crossing his face. "How long have you been away from the sect?" Wang Yonglai continued. 13 days. Shun Lian responded. "Did you leave alone?" "Not at all. I was accompanied by senior brother Wang Hui." "Wang Hui? Where is he now?" "Upon our exit, we parted ways to fulfill our respective missions, and I am unaware of senior brother Wang's current whereabouts." Their rapid exchange allowed Shun Lian to deduce the purpose of Wang Yonglai's visit. He had anticipated such inquiries and maintained a serene facade, responding with precision. Leaving no room for doubt, Wang Yonglai scrutinized Shun Lian closely, noting the sincerity in his eyes and the straightforwardness of his replies, which did not suggest deceit. A sense of disappointment washed over him, for if this were the case, his only lead had reached an impasse. Where else might I find Wang Hui? Damn it! Where has that rascal run off to? Wang Yonglai cursed inwardly, casting a cold glare at Shun Lian, anger bubbling within him. "Humph, after searching for so long, and you know nothing of his whereabouts, then you are of no use to me." With that, he abruptly drew his sword, aiming a lethal strike at Shun Lian's neck. Should this blow land, Shun Lian would meet a swift and gruesome end. However, Shun Lian had no intention of succumbing easily. As the blade descended, he remained still above the waist, yet his feet propelled him backward with a sudden surge, retreating half a meter just in time to evade the deadly arc of the sword. Wang Yonglai was momentarily taken aback, his eyes narrowing with a chilling glare as he fixed his gaze on Shun Lian. Sighing helplessly, Shun Lian forced a bitter smile and shook his head. Such was the unpredictability of fate. In handling the matter of Wang Hui, he had underestimated the gravity of the situation. In Shun Lian's perspective, as long as he answered flawlessly, he would be momentarily safe from suspicion. Yet, the outcome was quite the opposite, having failed to elicit the desired response. Wang Yonglai resorted to violence in a fit of rage. Such was the nature of the fantastical realm. Human life has always been undervalued, and reason will forever yield to brute force. To secure one's existence and shield oneself from humiliation, one must continuously enhance their strength until no one can conquer them. "Young man, if I recall correctly, your prowess has barely reached the 3rd level of body refinement. You could not possibly evade the sword strike I just unleashed." Wang Yonglai spoke coldly, his icy gaze fixed on Shun Lian. "Who are you, and why have you infiltrated my Qingyun sect? Furthermore, did Wang Hui discover your secret, only to meet his demise at your hands?" "It would be too cumbersome to explain, but I can assure you that Wang Hui is indeed dead," Shun Lian replied nonchalantly as he slowly drew his longsword. Upon witnessing his movement, Wang Yonglai initially displayed a look of astonishment, which soon morphed into a chilling resolve. "In that case, you shall accompany my son into the afterlife," he bellowed, thrusting his sword with a sudden ferocity. The tip of the blade erupting with a 3-foot-long cold gleam, signifying his strength had surpassed the realm of qi refinement. Shun Lian was well prepared and deftly evaded the attack. Alas, the sword's radiance surged forth too swiftly. He was but a fraction late, resulting in a gash across his chest. "Humph, your strength is commendable, yet even so, you cannot withstand 3 of my strikes," Wang Yonglai declared with pride. He had cultivated for decades, yet due to his mediocre talent, he had barely entered the 4th level of qi refinement, securing a position as an outer sect steward through his family support. Nevertheless, this did not prevent him from looking down upon Shun Lian. There had been others from rival sects who had infiltrated the sect before. To avoid detection, such infiltrators would never exceed the level of body refinement. Otherwise, their energy signature would leave a mark and be sensed by the sect. As Shun Lian made his move, Wang Yonglai had already categorized him as another sect's infiltrator, making swift judgments in his mind. Since Shun Lian was still in the body refinement stage, it would be a trivial task for him to slay him with his qi refinement strength. With this thought, Wang Yonglai launched a relentless assault. The sword's radiance swelling once more, an astonishing force sweeping towards Shun Lian. However, as he beheld the strike, Shun Lian merely shook his head slightly, recognizing it as mere facade. Superficial at best, he murmured, then deftly shifted his form to evade the blade's edge, his long sword slicing upward from a diagonal angle. With his graceful maneuver, it was as if a silver flash had suddenly flickered and vanished before them. The two passed each other, and Wang Yonglai felt a chill at his throat, his body freezing in place. In the next moment, blood gushed forth like a broken dam, staining his chest. He instinctively pressed his hand to his throat, yet could not stem the torrent of blood. How is this possible? What kind of sword technique is this? Confusion filled Wang Yonglai's eyes as he rigidly turned to face Shun Lian. At that moment, Shun Lian had already sheathed his sword, his expression serene. Wang Yonglai opened his mouth, yet ultimately found himself unable to utter a single word. With a final gasp, he fell to the ground, devoid of life. Foolish as a swine, truly believing that reaching the Qi refinement stage made him invincible, Shun Lian mused, shaking his head in disbelief. He then expertly approached and began to search through Wang Yonglai's garments. The Qi refinement stage is indeed a rather awkward realm. It appears to be stronger than the physical refinement stage, yet it fundamentally serves to lay the groundwork for subsequent cultivation. The sole distinction from the physical refinement phase lies in the fact that spiritual energy has begun to accumulate within the body, allowing for a rudimentary application of this energy in both offensive and defensive maneuvers. However, that is where the differences cease. The martial techniques employed in combat remain at the low yellow tier, indistinguishable from those utilized during the physical refinement stage. If one were to identify a difference, it would be the ability to envelop the sword with spiritual energy, creating a blade aura that extends the reach of attacks while simultaneously enhancing the sharpness of the blade, nothing more. Wang Yonglai, at the 4th level of Qi cultivation, would naturally overpower any ordinary practitioner of the physical refinement stage. However, he found himself pitted against Shun Lian, a prodigy who had perfected all martial techniques to their utmost. The finesse of Shun Lian's swordplay was leagues beyond Wang Yonglai's capabilities. Coupled with Shun Lian's continuously strengthened physique, even without the aid of spiritual energy, his speed was remarkably swift. Given these various factors, it was hardly surprising that Wang Yonglai was so easily defeated. Within the realm of cultivation, the foundation building stage represents the first significant threshold. Only upon reaching this level can one experience a substantial leap in power. Shun Lian rummaged through Wang Yonglai's storage bag and opened it. Regardless of the circumstances, Wang Yonglai was an outer sect steward, and the contents of his storage bag were indeed plentiful. There were over 100 low-grade spiritual stones, intended for Qi cultivation, although they could also be exchanged for other cultivation items, making them quite valuable. However, as Shun Lian had yet to commence his Qi cultivation, they were of no immediate use to him. Furthermore, he discovered numerous vials of medicinal pills, mostly healing potions or energy-gathering pills designed to assist in cultivation. Finally, he came across an exquisite small jade vial containing a single pill. Upon inspection, he noticed the intricate patterns on it, and a sudden realization struck him, bringing forth a look of delight. Could this be a Xianling pill? He could not help but exclaim softly. The Xianling pill is the most precious of pills for low-level cultivators, second to none. The primary ingredient in its formulation is the Xianling herb, indicating its rarity. Many practitioners who have reached the 10th level of physical refinement struggle to transition into inner cultivation due to their inability to sense the flow of energy, often failing to do so throughout their lives. In such instances, consuming the Xianling herb significantly increases the likelihood of successfully cultivating Qi. With a single Xianling pill, even the most inept individual would surely succeed in Qi cultivation, as the pill generates a mass of unclaimed spiritual energy within the body, facilitating the perception and subsequent refinement of the corresponding cultivation techniques. It is akin to stepping into the Qi cultivation phase simply by ingesting the pill. Shun Lian was astonished to discover such a precious pill in Wang Yonglai's possession. Elated, he carefully placed the pill into his storage bag. After a meticulous search yielded no additional items of interest, he gathered dry twigs and efficiently disposed of the remains. Unbeknownst to him, the Xianling pill was originally intended for Wang Hui and was intricately linked to the former owner of this body. In the beginning, Wang Hui seized the Xianling herb and, upon returning to the sect, handed it over to Wang Yonglai. With the Xianling herb in hand, Wang Yonglai added several precious treasures and exchanged them within the clan for a Xianling pill, intending it for his son, Wang Hui. However, when he sought out Wang Hui, he discovered that his son had already departed. The subsequent events are well known. Ultimately, the pill fell into the hands of Shun Lian, who seized it for himself. After disposing of the body, Shun Lian surveyed his surroundings and, confirming that no one had noticed, hastily departed. His next destination was to return to the sect for the inner disciple selection. Once he obtained the status of an inner disciple, anyone who wished to provoke him would have to think twice. While this did not guarantee absolute safety, the distinction between the identity of an inner disciple and that of an ordinary outer disciple was indeed vast. Chapter 7. Inner Disciple Selection, Senior Brother Lu, Qingyan Sect. Outer Gate Square. As the inner disciple selection approached, numerous disciples were fervently engaged in discussion. The selection for this year's inner disciples was just around the corner. One could only wonder how many prodigies would emerge. Senior Brother Zhang, with your prowess, entering the inner sect must be a foregone conclusion. Allow me to extend my congratulations in advance. It is not so simple. Many are hindered at the transition to internal cultivation and cannot gain entry. I harbor no confidence in this regard. If only I could find a Xianling herb, it would significantly enhance my prospects. The Xianling herb is too precious, beyond the reach of ordinary disciples. However, Senior Brother Zhang, with your strength, even if you fail in the first round, you could certainly challenge for a spot in the second round. The second round? I fear its difficulty will not be any less than the first. I am unsure how many experts are eyeing that position. From what I know, there are many formidable individuals among the outer disciples this year. I doubt I stand out among them. Surely not. Is there anyone who can compare to you, Senior Brother Zhang? Last time, during the sect's mission, you resolved the situation with a single strike. Shoo, silence. Such achievements are trivial. Your praise is unwarranted, Junior Brother. It is best not to speak of it lest others mock us. Shen Lian kept his head low, passing by several outer disciples without drawing their attention. His understated demeanor did not arouse suspicion. However, with his keen hearing, he effortlessly absorbed their conversation, even without deliberately eavesdropping. The Qingyun sect holds 2 rounds of selection for inner disciples each year, a fact Shen Lian was well aware of thanks to the memories of the original owner. The first round involves all disciples who have reached the 10th level of body refinement. Those who meet this criterion may register to enter the assessment array established by the sect. An elder imparts the qi gathering technique, allowing a month of dedicated practice. If one successfully transitions to internal cultivation and breaks through to the first level of qi refinement, they pass the assessment and ascend to the rank of inner disciple. Should one fail, they have the option to participate in the second round or withdraw to continue their cultivation in seclusion. In the following year, any disciple who reaches the first level of qi refinement, regardless of when it occurs, may report to the outer gate steward for promotion. However, as time passes, those who take longer to reach the qi refinement stage will hold a lower status upon entering the inner sect and will receive fewer resources. Therefore, disciples eager to avoid lengthy waits have another opportunity to partake in the second round of assessment, which evaluates combat prowess. Among all the disciples participating in the assessment, the one with the highest combat prowess will be granted an exceptional admission, their standing no less than that of the first batch of successful candidates. They may even receive the sect's bestowal of the mystic spirit herb, which will be refined under the guidance of the elders to enhance their internal cultivation. The assessment consists of 2 rounds. The first tests innate talent, while the second evaluates combat strength. Should one lack sufficient talent, the sect is still willing to invest in their training if their combat abilities are formidable enough. Upon returning to his modest wooden cabin, Shun Lian sat cross-legged, harboring no anxiety regarding the inner sect selection the following day. Not only did he possess the mystic spirit pill as a safety net, allowing him to enter the qi refinement stage at any moment, but he also held unwavering confidence in his ability to defeat all disciples in the second round based solely on combat strength and claim victory. However, he preferred to advance directly through the first round if possible, keeping his combat prowess a secret to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. In his mind, he quietly practiced the sword technique once more. This was a new sword art he had exchanged for in Xianyong town before returning to the sect, known as the Aurora sword technique, which also belonged to the lower grade of the yellow level. He expended 6 skill points to perfect the Aurora sword, retaining 4 skill points to further enhance his body refining technique, thereby strengthening his physical form once again. The night passed without incident. The next morning, Shun Lian stretched lazily before stepping outside, greeted by the crisp and refreshing air. As he reached the threshold, he encountered another outer sect disciple clad in a blue robe. Ah, Shun Lian, you're back. When did you return? The disciple exclaimed upon seeing him. Brother Lu, Shun Lian acknowledged with a nod. I just returned yesterday. You must be here for the inner sect selection, right? Haha, coincidentally, I was planning to attend as well. Shall we go together? Brother Lu suggested with a smile. With no reason to decline, Shun Lian accompanied him towards the outer sect square. By the way, Shun Lian, I recall you left with Brother Wang Hui for a mission. Has he not returned? Brother Lu casually inquired during their walk. Shun Lian cast a sidelong glance at him, a flicker of intrigue stirring within. He and Wang Hui had left the sect together, and while many had seen them, few truly knew them. Given the vast number of outer sect disciples, over 100,000, most were unfamiliar with one another except for those residing nearby. I'm not certain if Brother Wang has returned. We parted ways outside the sect, Shun Lian replied nonchalantly. Oh, I wonder what Brother Wang is up to. Recently, an outer sect steward came looking for him. It seemed urgent, Brother Lu remarked, not delving deeper. An outer sect steward? Did he mention what he needed from Brother Wang? Shun Lian inquired. He didn't specify. He searched a few times without finding him, and then he stopped coming. Brother Lu shook his head. It appeared that the outer sect steward was likely Wang Yonglai. Shun Lian mused internally, contemplating whether to eliminate Brother Lu. Despite the latter knowing little, he still represented a potential lead. What remained unclear was how many others were privy to this matter. Perhaps he would seek an opportunity to probe further. With a glint of cold determination in his eyes, Shun Lian resolved his course of action. The two arrived at the outer sect square, where disciples clad in blue robes had already gathered in droves. A vast throng of people gathered, numbering no less than 70 or 80,000, truly a sea of humanity. Naturally, not all these disciples had attained the 10th level of body refinement. In reality, a significant portion were merely spectators drawn by curiosity. Shun Lian and senior brother Lu slowly navigated through the crowd. At the forefront, one could see a dozen or so outer sect stewards seated behind a cloud table, while before them stretched rows of disciples in line. These queuing disciples were the ones genuinely here to register for the assessment. This is the place. It won't be long before registration closes and the examination formally commences. The first round will remain hidden from our view, but the second round promises to be intriguing. Senior brother Lu remarked as they came to a halt. Shun Lian nodded in agreement, choosing not to elaborate. Suddenly, he stepped forward and joined the nearest queue. Hey, Shun Lian, what are you doing? Don't disrupt the order of the examination, or the sect will impose severe penalties. Senior brother Lu exclaimed in astonishment as Shun Lian made his move, drawing the curious gaze of many around them. Shun Lian merely smiled and shook his head, offering no explanation. Senior brother Lu wished to say more but faltered, contemplating a certain possibility. Heavens! Could it be that you have already reached the 10th level of body refinement, preparing to register for the assessment? His face was a mask of disbelief. Having joined the sect around the same time as Shun Lian, he had little interaction with him, yet lived nearby and had some understanding of his progress. He simply could not believe that Shun Lian had achieved the 10th level, especially since he himself had only just reached the 5th. However, as the queue gradually advanced, it wasn't long before Shun Lian found himself at the front. The outer sect steward received Shun Lian's disciple token, examined it briefly, and directly accessed Shun Lian's record of martial arts selection in the scripture pavilion. There was no need for testing. He was instantly approved for registration. This scene shattered senior brother Lu's previous impression of Shun Lian entirely. My heavens, has this fellow unknowingly reached such a level in his cultivation? He marveled. His mouth agape, unable to articulate the myriad of emotions swirling within him. As he glanced again at Shun Lian, his eyes involuntarily betrayed a hint of reverence mixed with an inescapable tinge of jealousy. Chapter 8. Entering the array, consuming the Xianling pill. The registration lasted a full half-hour. Shun Lian estimated that approximately 10,000 disciples successfully registered to participate in the inner sect selection. The presence of nearly 10,000 disciples at the 10th level of body refinement attested to the profound foundation of the Qingyan sect. All right, those who have registered should prepare. The assessment is about to commence. At the forefront of the square, an elderly man clad in a purple robe soared into the air, hovering above the ground. His voice resonated through the space via spiritual energy, instantly silencing the crowd. The purple robe signified his status as an inner sect elder. A dozen outer sect stewards had already removed the cloud table and stood respectfully at the periphery. The time had come to activate the assessment array. Some disciples could not contain their excitement, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. The elder swiftly traced a series of illusions with his hands, rapidly forming several seals. Then, pressing his hands downward, a vast wave of spiritual energy surged forth from his being, enveloping the ground beneath him. The overwhelming spiritual pressure caused numerous disciples to retreat, clearing a vast space. Is this the might of a gold core cultivator? Shun Lian also withdrew a distance, gazing at the elder with eyes filled with longing. To attain the position of an inner sect elder, one must possess at least gold core level strength. Even from afar, the sheer intensity of the spiritual energy was palpable to Shun Lian, making him acutely aware that his current physical prowess was utterly inadequate to withstand it. A mere wisp of that energy could spell his instant demise. This was under the assumption that he was not the target, should he become the focus. The scenario was too dreadful for him to contemplate. Suddenly, a torrent of spiritual energy cascaded downwards. The elder's eyes widened, and a low command escaped his lips. A resounding boom reverberated, causing the ground to tremble. Beneath the stone slabs of the plaza, countless intricate golden patterns illuminated abruptly. The inner sect examination array had been established right in the center of the square. As the elder channeled his spiritual energy, the patterns grew increasingly radiant, ultimately dazzling to the point of rendering it difficult to gaze upon. At last, a muffled thud echoed, signaling the complete activation and stabilization of the grand array. As the crowd lifted their gazes, the golden light gradually dimmed, allowing for easier observation. Countless runes began to rotate in the air following a certain rhythm, isolating the central space of the plaza. From an external viewpoint, one could still perceive the scene, albeit through a haze reminiscent of frosted glass, rendering it somewhat indistinct. Wiping the sweat from his brow, the elder clearly exerted considerable effort to initiate this grand array. Lightly descending to the ground, he approached the periphery of the formation, and with a single gesture, a colossal portal emerged from the swirling runes. Participants of the examination, please enter the array, the elder intoned solemnly. Immediately, all registered disciples, under the guidance of the outer sect attendants, hastily entered the formation. Before long, all had entered, and the elder reactivated the array, effectively severing the disciples from the outside world. Those outer sect disciples who lacked the qualifications to partake in the examination witnessed this spectacle and chose to depart. The first round of assessment would span an entire month, and there was little point in lingering. Most had come merely to witness the inner sect elder activate the formation. Meanwhile, within the array, Shen Lian was entirely oblivious to the happenings outside. He curiously surveyed his surroundings. Upon entering this space, it felt as though he had stepped into an entirely different realm. The atmosphere was exceptionally serene, unmarred by any disruptive noises. The other examination disciples were also isolated by the formation, rendering any form of communication impossible. This array had been meticulously constructed by the Qingyun sect for the selection of inner sect disciples, designed to foster an optimal environment for focused comprehension. Additionally, it served a protective function. As Shen Lian observed with intrigue, he had barely settled into a meditative posture when a flash of golden light manifested before him, revealing a spectral figure. The apparition resembled the elder from earlier. Disciples, pay your respects to the elder, Shen Lian promptly bowed. The ethereal figure offered no reply. In truth, the figure that appeared was merely a projection transmitted through the formation by an inner sect elder, rendering the voices of the crowd inaudible. Before all the disciples, his silhouette manifested, marking the official commencement of the selection assessment for the inner disciples. After a brief pause, the elder spoke with an imposing authority. Next, I shall elucidate the techniques of the Qi gathering method. I will demonstrate and explain it 3 times, and you must commit it to memory. With those words, the elder slowly closed his eyes, reopening them moments later to formally commence the explanation of the operational pathway of the Qi gathering method and the cultivation techniques associated with it. His explanation was meticulous, delivered in a calm tone. Shen Lian listened attentively, managing to memorize the entire content after just one rendition. However, the elder's projection indeed expounded 3 times before it ultimately vanished. The dissipating figure signified the true beginning of the assessment. Shen Lian promptly settled into a meditative posture, recalling the cultivation of the Qi gathering method. His consciousness gradually regained its tranquility as he meticulously sensed the spiritual energy permeating the air. Unbeknownst to him, time slipped away silently. Suddenly, Shen Lian opened his eyes, conducting a careful assessment. To his astonishment, 3 days had elapsed during this single moment of enlightenment. Regrettably, although his innate understanding was commendable due to his transmigration, allowing him to sense the spiritual energy and successfully absorb it into his body, he found that no matter how hard he tried, the energy remained unresponsive, failing to circulate effectively within him. Without the establishment of a cycle, he could not store it in his dantian, and ultimately, the energy dissipated into the air. Alas, the quality of this body was woefully inadequate. Shen Lian shook his head in resignation. After a moment of hesitation, he ultimately refrained from consuming the Xianling pill, opting instead to continue his attempts. He wished to ascertain just how poor the aptitude of this body truly was. The results did not disappoint him, as it was no wonder that the original owner had taken several years to reach the 3rd layer of body refinement. With Shen Lian's capacity for comprehension, after more than 20 days of cultivation, he had yet to successfully gather qi, never completing even a single cycle of the technique. What was I thinking? Exerting such effort for nothing? He lamented. Upon opening his eyes once more, Shen Lian found himself utterly despondent. He held no further expectations for this body and decisively retrieved the Xianling pill, placing it in his mouth. As the pill dissolved upon entry, it transformed into a wave of warmth that surged into his dantian. As the medicinal effects took hold, the spiritual energy gradually expanded, evolving from a mere thread into a mass. Shun Lian felt a slight distension in his abdomen. Fortunately, his physical form was robust. Previous training in body refinement had significantly enhanced his corporeal strength. With a gentle pressure, he managed to contain the swelling spiritual energy. Could this truly pose a danger? Shun Lian murmured instinctively. Little did he know that the Xianling pill was potent, and ordinary body refinement disciples required the assistance of an adept to properly refine it. Otherwise, the rapidly expanding spiritual energy could potentially rupture their meridians, rendering them incapacitated. It was no surprise that he was unaware, as the original owner had limited knowledge and was oblivious to these facts. Fortunately, Shun Lian had previously allocated all remaining skill points to enhance his physical form, inadvertently allowing him to navigate this crisis with relative ease. Chapter 9. System Upgrade. The genius Shun Lian immersed himself in concentration, attempting to control the mass of spiritual energy. As this energy was derived from a medicinal pill, it exhibited an extraordinary docility, allowing him to manipulate its flow with ease. Following the pathway of the qi gathering technique, Shun Lian guided the spiritual energy through a complete cycle before ultimately integrating it into his dantian. This mass of spiritual energy became thoroughly stabilized, transforming into his own essence, no longer dissipating into the ether. Thus, he successfully achieved the first layer of qi cultivation. Shun Lian felt no exhilaration. After all, this transformation was solely due to the Xianling pill, and he had little to feel proud about. Ding! At that moment, a system notification echoed in his mind. Detected host has successfully broken through a major realm. Skill points adjusted. Preparing to distribute rewards. Body refinement technique. 100 skill points. Qi gathering technique. 100 skill points. Qing Yun sword technique. 100 skill points. Baibu fist. 100 skill points. Ding! Host's total skill points have surpassed 1,000 for the first time. System upgrade initiated. A cascade of notifications left Shun Lian slightly dazed. As the final message concluded, the system fell into a tranquil silence. He hastily extended his consciousness into his mind, summoning the system panel. Infinite skill point system. Host. Shun Lian. Upgrading. Estimated completion time. 72 hours. Skill points. 1,400. Upon witnessing the abrupt surge of over 1,000 skill points, Shun Lian was filled with delight. Unfortunately, the system had entered an upgrade state, rendering him unable to execute any operations for 3 days. Accepting this, he exited the system interface without further ado. 3 days was merely a fleeting moment. He could afford to wait. With time to spare, he resumed practicing the qi gathering technique. In a state of cultivation, time flew by swiftly. Unbeknownst to him, 2 more days slipped away. When Shun Lian finally emerged from his meditative state, he discovered that the system's upgrade process was just 2 hours shy of completion. He then assessed his cultivation progress and could not help but click his tongue in disappointment. Indeed, his innate talent was severely lacking. After nearly 3 days of practicing the qi gathering technique, there had been little change in the spiritual energy within him. Without the system, it was likely he would never have stepped into the realm of qi cultivation in this lifetime. As he lamented, the surrounding space suddenly resonated with a low hum. As if trembling subtly, the other disciples still in cultivation were startled awake, breaking their meditative states. The space quivered for a moment before erupting with a jolt. Golden runes vanished, and a cacophony of sounds filled the air, chirping insects, singing birds, and a gentle breeze. The world seemed to transform into a vibrant tapestry in an instant. Had the formation been lifted? Shun Lian turned to survey his surroundings. The familiar figures of many disciples came into view once more, aside from those participating in the assessment. A substantial crowd had gathered at the periphery of the plaza, drawn to witness the candidates for advancement. The 30 days had elapsed, and the assessment was concluded. A commanding voice resonated, belonging to the esteemed elder in the purple robe who had activated the formation earlier. He floated in midair, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. Instinctively, everyone tightened their focus. Successfully completing the qi gathering stage, I reported to the designated area, while others could choose to withdraw or participate in the second round of assessments. Those intending to partake in the subsequent evaluation were directed to sign up over there. The elder gestured to the side. On the left side of the square, several outer sect stewards were already seated behind the cloud table, prepared for the process. All right, make your choices, the elder stated as he slowly descended. Positioning himself before the crowd, Shun Lian glanced around, noticing the varied expressions among the gathered disciples. Some wore faces of sheer elation, undoubtedly having passed the assessment and entered the qi refinement stage. Others, however, wore gloomy visages, appearing deeply disappointed. Some hesitated, torn between the decision to enter the second round or not. Though there was but a single spot available for the next round, it still represented an opportunity. Yet, Their lack of confidence in their own abilities left them fearful of defeat in the competition. Any injuries sustained might adversely affect their subsequent comprehension and cultivation. Thus, many remained indecisive about registering for the second round. Of course, such considerations were unnecessary for Shun Lian, having already completed the test. Observing others walking toward the inner sect elder, he too rose without hesitation to approach. Gradually, others around him made their decisions, resolutely turning toward the outer sect stewards to sign up for the second round. Meanwhile, a greater number of disciples shook their heads in resignation and slowly exited the square. At the edge of the square, Brother Lu gathered with the others, his gaze fixated on the inner sect elder until he spotted a familiar figure. Has Shun Lian truly passed the assessment? He murmured upon seeing Shun Lian's silhouette. Hey, brother, do you have an acquaintance who passed the assessment? Someone inquired. Drawn by Lu's words. Ah, yes, Lu instinctively replied. Wow, congratulations. With an inner sect brother looking out for you, life outside will surely be much easier. Indeed. It seems I shall have to rely on you for guidance, Lu responded, waving his hand, though a bitter smile adorned his face. Just days prior, an inner sect steward had approached him, inquiring about Wang Hui and whether any outer sect stewards were searching for him. Lu dared not conceal anything and divulged all he knew, once again mentioning Shun Lian's name. A nagging instinct told him that Shun Lian was somehow connected to Wang Hui's disappearance, which also explained the sudden surge in Shun Lian's strength. The unexpected entanglement in these affairs weighed heavily upon Lu, instilling within him a sense of foreboding. Now, it seemed that knowing Shun Lian might not be as fortunate as it appeared. Perhaps he should seek an opportunity to distance himself from this situation? Lu pondered silently. Meanwhile, Shun Lian remained blissfully unaware of these developments, steadily making his way forward in line. A glance around revealed that only about 40 disciples had passed the first round of assessments. Out of nearly 10,000 participants, such a low number was astonishingly grim. At the outer sect steward station, the number of registrants for the second round barely exceeded 100. It appears that many disciples lacked confidence in their abilities, hesitating to participate freely and opting to withdraw instead. As the group progressed slowly, it soon became Shun Lian's turn. The elder cast a fleeting glance in his direction, and Shun Lian felt as though the elder's gaze bore an air of authority, as if he had been completely laid bare in that instant, evoking a slight tremor in his heart. Fortunately, this intimidating gaze lasted but a moment, after which the elder's expression softened, revealing a hint of surprise upon observing Shun Lian. The pinnacle of Qi Refinement Stage 1? Quite impressive. The elder nodded slightly. What is your name? Disciple Shun Lian, he replied promptly, bowing respectfully and presenting his disciple token. The elder examined the token briefly before pocketing it and handing Shun Lian a new one, silver in hue, signifying his status as an inner disciple. Devote yourself to your cultivation. Should you have any uncertainties, feel free to approach me in the future, the elder said gently. Shun Lian nodded earnestly in response. However, the elder gestured for him to stand beside him, instructing, for now, wait here. I shall escort you to the inner sect shortly. Shun Lian bowed respectfully and obediently moved to stand behind the elder, awaiting further instructions. Chapter 10. True Disciples and Insights on Qi Refinement. The other disciples, witnessing the elder's demeanor towards Shun Lian, could not help but cast astonished glances. Many astute minds began to speculate. Earlier, they had heard the elder mention the pinnacle of Qi Refinement Stage 1, and how swiftly Shun Lian had completed the internal transformation, achieving such formidable strength. It was no wonder the elder regarded him with such distinction. Shun Lian must be the genius who showcased his prowess during this selection. Most of us are merely at the entry level of Qi refinement, with the more capable ones only reaching the mid-stage of the first level. How could this individual already be at the pinnacle? The disciples pondered discreetly, stealing glances at Shun Lian. Little did they know that his prowess stemmed from the consumption of a mystic spirit pill. Without such an enhancement, it was likely that any of them could easily surpass him based on innate talent alone. Yet, none considered this possibility. Not only the disciples, but even the inner elder had not surmised that Shun Lian's internal transformation was achieved through the mystic spirit pill. After all, the potency of the mystic spirit pill was formidable. Ordinary disciples who consumed it without the guidance of a master would undoubtedly suffer damage to their meridians, potentially rendering them incapacitated. How then could Shun Lian emerge unscathed? Before long, the statistics were concluded. A total of 43 individuals successfully advanced to become inner disciples through the first round of assessments. The group followed the elder towards the inner sect. The outer sect of Qingyun's sect lay at the foot of Mount Chongshan. Ascending the mountain path, traversing numerous formations, they arrived at the midpoint of the mountain, where the inner sect was situated. At this moment, aside from the elder, it was the first visit for all the others to the inner sect, and they could not help but curiously survey their surroundings. The most significant difference from the outer sect was the notably smaller number of people. After all, the minimum requirement for advancement was to be at least at the gathering chi stage. The buildings and layout were somewhat akin to those of the outer sect. Yet they were considerably more expansive, enveloped by gathering spirit arrays, which yielded a much richer supply of spiritual energy. The elder led the group on a brief tour of the inner sect, elucidating the rules while distributing the exclusive robes and cultivation supplies designated for inner disciples. Each disciple who ascends in rank is bestowed with an independent dwelling. If the outer sect's wooden cabins resemble modest bungalows, then the accommodations allocated to the inner sect are akin to luxurious villas. Each courtyard is protected by its own guardian spirit array. Accessible solely by the owner through a token, outsiders are entirely barred from entry without permission, significantly enhancing privacy. After a leisurely stroll, everyone had returned to their respective abodes, save for Shun Lian, who trailed behind the elder, awaiting the assignment of his new residence. Though perplexed, Shun Lian refrained from voicing his questions. After walking for a while longer, they arrived at a grand estate where the elder finally came to a halt, retrieving his token to unlock the internal restrictions before entering. Shun Lian obediently followed. Inside, the elder sat cross-legged, finally directing his gaze towards Shun Lian, nodding in satisfaction. The ability to endure without prompting inquiries demonstrated a commendable composure. The elder praised. Shun Lian bowed respectfully. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Duan Mingji, the seventh elder of the inner sect. This is my sanctuary for quiet contemplation. The seventh elder spoke in a measured tone. The reason I have brought you here is that I intend to take you as my disciple. According to sect regulations, inner sect elders possess the authority to recruit disciples. Should you agree, you will be elevated to the status of an official disciple, a rank that surpasses that of ordinary inner sect disciples. Naturally, you may decline and seek another elder's tutelage, provided they are willing to accept you, in which case you can still attain the status of an official disciple. The seventh elder elaborated patiently. It was then that Shun Lian grasped the elder's intention in retaining him until the end. He quickly deliberated. The title of official disciple alone suggested superior benefits compared to that of an inner sect disciple. As a newcomer, unlike other disciples who possessed personal connections, he found himself unfamiliar with the sect's factions, completely in the dark regarding the distribution of power within the inner sect. Although he could refuse, incurring the risk of offending the elder did not seem prudent. Most importantly, he was indifferent to the elder's teaching capabilities, as he had a system to rely upon, alleviating any concerns on that front. What he truly sought was a protective identity and background. With this realization, Shun Lian hesitated no longer. He promptly bowed deeply, performing the traditional 3 kneels and 9 knocks. Disciple Shun Lian greets master. Ha ha ha, splendid, splendid, splendid. The seventh elder laughed heartily upon Shun Lian's agreement, his joy evident as he repeated the word splendid thrice. Since you are willing, from this moment forth, you shall be my disciple, Duan Mingji. Unlike other elders, I impose few regulations. As long as you do not violate sect rules, honor your teacher, and refrain from harming fellow disciples, all will be well. As he spoke, the elder waved his hand, and a surge of spiritual energy enveloped Shun Lian, lifting him gently. Under my guidance, you will be the 5th among 4 existing disciples. They are currently away on assignments, but I shall introduce you to them when the opportunity arises. With that, the 7th elder produced a storage bag and tossed it to Shun Lian. Within it lies the robe of an official disciple, alongside a month's worth of cultivation materials. Additionally, I have prepared for you a compilation of insights on the chi refinement stage. You may ponder it at your leisure, and should you encounter any uncertainties, feel free to approach me at any time. Proceed north from here. The 6th courtyard is vacant. You may use the token to unlock it, and upon doing so, leave your mark. Thus it shall become your exclusive sanctuary. Thank you, master. Shun Lian bowed respectfully. The 7th elder waved his hand, and only then did Shun Lian turn to exit. Upon leaving the room, following the 7th elder's guidance, he journeyed north until he found his courtyard. After unlocking it with his token and leaving his mark, he settled down cross-legged in his room. This chamber was 7 or 8 times larger than the modest wooden cabin at the outer gate, exuding an air of spaciousness and brightness. Particularly, the expansive courtyard outside, protected by a formation, allowed him the freedom to practice martial arts without the risk of prying eyes. Filled with joy, Shun Lian retrieved his storage pouch for inspection. Inside, he discovered 20 low-grade spirit stones, a crimson robe distinct from the plain attire of ordinary inner disciples. The robe was adorned with intricate black patterns, enhancing its grandeur. At the cuffs, a golden character representing the number 7 signified his affiliation with the 7th elder. After donning the robe, he continued his examination. Besides essential living supplies, he found a thick tome inscribed with the words insights on chi cultivation. Upon opening it, he found the contents handwritten, authored personally by the seventh elder. Although devoid of any martial techniques or skills, it elaborated meticulously on the nuances of the qi refining stage and its practical applications. Many aspects left Shen Lian in awe. The two fundamental realms prior to foundation establishment are the body refinement and qi refining stages. Both stages essentially lay the groundwork for subsequent cultivation. The peculiarity of the body refinement stage lies in the fact that without direct confrontation, one cannot ascertain another's cultivation level. In contrast, the most distinguishing feature of the qi refining stage is that one cannot gauge an individual's combat prowess solely based on their realm. The quantity of spiritual energy within one's body plays only a minimal role in actual combat. In genuine battle, it is not merely the act of enveloping oneself in spiritual energy or shrouding the sword's edge that determines strength. Rather, it hinges on the timing and context of energy usage. The application of energy at critical moments is far more consequential than its continuous release. For instance, during a sword duel, intermittently enveloping the long sword with spiritual energy and then retracting it alters the effective length of the sword, rendering the duel more enigmatic and unpredictable, thereby confounding the opponent. The seventh elder's profound yet accessible elucidation of the qi refining phase captivated Shen Lian, immersing him completely in the material. Time slipped away unnoticed until, suddenly, a notification sound echoed in his mind. Ding! System upgrade complete. New lottery feature added. Please refer to the host for detailed information. The upgrade is complete. Upon hearing the system notification, Shen Lian felt a jolt of excitement and hastily set the tome aside, revealing a look of delight. He delved into his consciousness, summoning the system panel. Indeed, the upgrade status had vanished, replaced by a new lottery option at the bottom. He promptly used his consciousness to click on the introduction lottery feature, initially unlocked following the first system upgrade. Currently, there are two lottery options: single lottery, consuming 100 skill points per attempt; standard 10-draw lottery, consuming 800 skill points per attempt. The items obtained from the lottery are distributed at random, encompassing techniques, martial arts, spiritual instruments, elixirs, and more. Currently, the item level is classified as elementary. Elementary? After reading the introduction, Shen Lian couldn't help but scratch his head. He was uncertain about the exact meaning of elementary, as stated by the system. Upon glancing at his remaining skill points, he was surprised to find he had accumulated a total of 1,500 points. Just moments ago, it had indicated 1,400. Where had this additional 100 points come from? As he continued to explore, he discovered a new skill listed under the martial arts section, Qi Cultivation Insights. To his astonishment, this cultivation insight was also categorized as a martial skill, and it even featured a plus sign, allowing for upgrades. Shen Lian calculated that he currently practiced two techniques, the body forging art and the qi gathering technique. The body forging art had already been enhanced to the maximum level, while the qi gathering technique, having just been initiated, remained at the elementary stage. Additionally, there were 13 martial skills in total, 9 obtained within the sect, 3 exchanged in Xiangyong Town, and the last being the qi cultivation insights gifted by Elder 7. The other 12 martial skills were all of the yellow grade low tier, which he had also elevated to their fullest potential. The qi cultivation insights appeared to be somewhat distinct, lacking a grade designation, possibly because it was not regarded as a true martial skill or technique, yet it, too, could be enhanced. Shen Lian tentatively clicked the plus sign. Instantly, a cascade of realizations flooded his mind, enriching his understanding of utilizing spiritual energy during combat at the qi cultivation stage. Recognizing its effectiveness, he continued to click. A multitude of insights rapidly accumulated, consequently enhancing his practical combat abilities. Time slipped by unnoticed until suddenly, the plus sign next to the qi cultivation insights vanished. Shen Lian glanced at his skill points balance and realized, to his astonishment, that he had unknowingly expended 100 points, all allocated to the qi cultivation insights. As he reflected on the insights he had just gained, his eyes began to gleam with clarity. He suddenly felt a sense of confidence. Despite being merely at the first layer of qi cultivation, his overall strength seemed unchanged. Yet he now possessed combat prowess that could rival even those at the 10th layer of qi cultivation, perhaps even triumph over them. This was an unwavering confidence, as he had nearly mastered the combat techniques of the qi cultivation phase to their utmost limit. Coupled with the 12 perfected martial skills, he was certain that his current standing at the qi cultivation level was truly invincible. Having just embarked on the first layer of qi cultivation, his spiritual energy reserves were still modest. What might he achieve upon ascending to higher layers? Glancing at the technique that indicated entry into qi cultivation, Shen Lian felt a surge of excitement. Without hesitation, he began to allocate points once more. In comparison to upgrading the body forging art, Enhancing the Qi gathering technique evidently required more skill points. After expending another 100 points, Shun Lian elevated his prowess to the 10th layer of Qi cultivation. Although further enhancement was possible, he decided to pause for the moment. With 1,300 skill points remaining, there was no rush to upgrade. It was time to explore the lottery system. After a brief contemplation, he was convinced that since the lottery feature emerged post-upgrade, its effectiveness could only be promising. It would indeed be a pity not to give it a try. A single lottery draw consumed 100 skill points, while a standard 10 draw would require 800 skill points. Even a fool knows which option to select. Simply click on the ordinary 10 consecutive draws. Ding! You have chosen the ordinary 10 consecutive draws, which will consume 800 skill points. Are you certain? Yes. Without hesitation, Shun Lian confirmed his choice. Ding! The lottery begins. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 recovery pills. Congratulations, host. You have acquired the breathing technique and have automatically learned it to the beginner level. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 healing pills. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 hemostatic pills. Congratulations, host. You have received a mid-grade spiritual artifact, the Blue Jade Sword. Congratulations, host. You have acquired the advanced human-level movement technique, the wave gliding steps, and have automatically learned it to the beginner level. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 hemostatic pills. Congratulations, host. You have received a low-grade spiritual artifact, the Goose Feather Inner Armor. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 hemostatic pills. Congratulations, host. You have acquired the pinnacle human-level martial technique, the 9 Swords of Dugu, and have automatically learned it to the beginner level. Lottery concluded. What a surprise. The wave gliding steps and the 9 Swords of Dugu? Are these the 2 techniques I speculated about? As he read the series of notifications, Shun Lian felt exhilarated. The system's classifications differ from those of this world. The 9 Swords of Dugu has just been designated as a pinnacle human-level technique, and he wondered how it compared to other martial arts. Shun Lian quickly examined the details. Based on the memories in his mind, it indeed was the 2 techniques he had surmised. The wave gliding steps is a premier lightness skill, grounded in the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, allowing one to traverse designated positions in a specific sequence. Between movements, phantoms abound, and one moves with the swiftness of the wind and lightning. Beyond its speed, it also possesses the ability to confuse adversaries. In contrast, the 9 Swords of Dugu does not rely on specific sword techniques, but emphasizes the realm of intent. Each sword strike encompasses myriad variations tailored to different foes and attacks, with classifications such as the ultimate strike, sword-breaking strike, blade-breaking strike, spear-breaking strike, palm-breaking strike, and chi-breaking strike, among others. After a preliminary exploration, Shun Lian discerned that these 2 techniques surpassed all other martial arts he had practiced, clearly exceeding the yellow grade category. Struggling to contain his excitement, he continued to inspect the results. This draw also yielded a martial technique named the breathing technique, which, as its name suggests, enables one to conceal their aura, making it difficult for others to perceive their true strength. Additionally, he received a mid-grade spiritual artifact sword, the Blue Jade Sword. Crafted from an unknown jade and inscribed with formations, its body is a striking sky blue, appearing exceptionally beautiful. Infusing spiritual energy into it makes it extraordinarily sharp. Shun Lian could hardly contain his joy. This Blue Jade Sword far surpassed the long sword provided by the Qingyun sect. He immediately dropped blood to recognize his ownership and absorbed the Blue Jade Sword into his body for nurturing. Next was the low-grade spiritual artifact, the Goose Feather Inner Armor. After refining it, it enveloped his body, concealed by his robe, and appeared indistinguishable from the outside, while effectively protecting his vital areas. The recovery pill can instantly restore all spiritual energy for a practitioner at the 10th level of Qi refining. The healing pill is used for internal injuries, while the hemostatic pill addresses external wounds. Each of these remedies is significantly more effective than those provided by the sect. After all, products from the system are guaranteed to be of superior quality. Overall, Shun Lian was immensely satisfied with this draw, exclaiming that it was certainly worth it. After reviewing his skill points, Shun Lian found himself with 500 remaining. He pondered for a moment before deciding to upgrade his concealment technique. With a sudden surge in strength to the 10th level of Qi training, he realized that if this secret were to be uncovered by outsiders, it would undoubtedly invite scrutiny. Fortunately, he had drawn the concealment technique in the recent lottery. Otherwise, he would have been at a loss for how to cope. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, while reminding himself to remain cautious, for his current abilities were still insufficient for recklessness. He spent 100 skill points to elevate the concealment technique to perfection. Below the Golden Core stage, including at the Golden Core stage, no one would be able to discern his true cultivation level, allowing Shun Lian to relax for the time being. He then proceeded to upgrade the Dugu 9 swords. This sword technique, deserving of its classification as pinnacle human grade by the system, consumed a substantial 200 skill points before he managed to elevate it to perfection. Next, he turned his attention to the wave gliding step, which required slightly fewer points than the Dugu 9 swords, yet still consumed 130 to achieve completion. At this juncture, he had 70 skill points remaining. After a moment's consideration, Shun Lian resolved to continue upgrading the Qi gathering technique. He wondered if he could directly elevate his strength to the foundation establishment stage with skill points. If that were the case, crossing such a significant threshold would lead to a recalibration of skill points, resulting in a surge of points that would alleviate his worries about insufficient strength. With this thought in mind, he promptly allocated 20 skill points to the Qi gathering technique. Chapter 12. Reinforcing the Dugu 9 swords. The emergence of sword intent as he invested skill points. The spiritual energy within him surged rapidly. The exhilarating sensation of his power increasing intoxicated Shun Lian. After adding the 20 points, he sensed that the spiritual energy content had more than doubled compared to before. However, when he glanced back at the system's attribute panel, he discovered that he had not broken through to the foundation establishment stage. Similar to the body refinement process, after achieving perfection in the body refinement technique, further investment resulted in it being categorized as body refinement technique, reinforced. Now, the same applied to his Qi gathering technique, which was displayed as Qi gathering technique, reinforced. It appeared that he was constrained by the level of the technique itself, no matter how much he upgraded. It would merely enhance Qi training without allowing him to break through to foundation establishment. After a brief contemplation, Shun Lian grasped the situation. Consequently, there was no need to continue investing in the Qi gathering technique. With only 50 skill points left, he knew he needed to allocate them wisely. Upon reviewing all the martial skills he had learned, he found that most were of low yellow grade, rendering further investment unnecessary. Ultimately, his gaze fell upon the Dugu 9 swords. It was the only offensive martial skill he had drawn from the system, classified as pinnacle human grade, and he hoped it would yield some surprises. Resolute, he decided to pour all 50 remaining points into the Dugu 9 swords. A torrent of swordsmanship insights flooded his mind. Shun Lian absorbed and integrated this knowledge like a sponge, achieving a profound understanding. Eventually, he entered a remarkable state, as if perceiving the essence of the myriad worlds. Countless rules entwined like fine threads, transforming through intricate changes into the fabric of reality. Time passed, though how long he could not tell, when Shun Lian suddenly jolted awake. Almost instinctively, he rose to his feet, extending his right hand, and the blue jade sword materialized as a beam of light, which he grasped tightly in an instant. He turned and thrust forward. A simple yet profound sword thrust. No, it cannot even be classified as a technique. Rather, it is merely a compilation of the most elementary swordplay movements that a novice in the art of swordsmanship would learn. This thrust, devoid of any spiritual essence, appears ethereal and weightless. Yet, at the very moment of execution, an inexplicable sharpness erupts with ferocity. Suddenly, a low resonance emanates from a wooden piece of furniture 3 meters ahead, revealing a fist-sized hole. Wood shavings scatter like dust, obliterated into fine particles. Staring at the destruction he has just wrought, Shun Lian is filled with astonishment. Is this the essence of sword intent? A thought flickers in his mind, only to be dismissed. No, the power is too feeble. It must be the nascent form of sword intent. With this thought, he hastily summons the system panel for inspection. Indeed, within the martial arts section, a new capability has emerged, the embryonic sword intent. He notices the plus sign that indicates the possibility of upgrading with skill points. Regrettably, he has exhausted his skill points. Otherwise, he would have immediately upgraded to assess the effects. Sword intent. How many exceptionally talented sword cultivators have spent their entire lives unable to comprehend its existence? It is a realm that one can encounter, but cannot seek. To penetrate the origins of existence and directly disrupt the rules, its power is beyond verbal description. Those who can grasp sword intent are said to possess combat prowess that transcends the ordinary, defeating opponents of higher levels with the ease of everyday tasks. Shun Lian never anticipated that he would one day grasp sword intent, even if it is merely in its embryonic stage, with proper application. It promises a terrifying enhancement to his combat capabilities. Filled with excitement, he immediately steps outside to practice, striving to integrate this newfound insight into his sword techniques, continuously rehearsing. Time slowly passes as Shun Lian immerses himself in cultivation, momentarily forgetting all mundane concerns. Meanwhile, the inner sect selection has concluded, and the second round has produced a disciple named Lian Hong. At the pinnacle of body refinement at the 10th level, he has vanquished all competitors, demonstrating exceptional combat talent. Elder 7 initially hoped to take him as a disciple, but alas, he was preempted by Elder 3, who claimed him first. The Qingyun sect is vast, with numerous disciples. Yet the resources for cultivation are limited, leading to fierce competition among the sect's higher-ups. Absorbing outstanding disciples to strengthen their own factions is one such strategy. Elder 7, having advanced late and lacking familial support, wields the weakest influence. Over the years, he has only managed to secure 1 or 2 disciples during his turn to oversee the inner sect selections. At all other times, his opportunities have been seized by other elders. At this moment, within the residence of Elder 3, a sprawling estate serving as both his retreat and the heart of the Wang family, Lian Hong kneels respectfully, listening attentively to Elder 3's teachings. Just then, a middle-aged man clad in a green robe enters. Elder 3 acknowledges the newcomer with a nod and addresses Lian Hong. You may leave for now. A senior brother will assist you in transitioning into internal cultivation and entering the Qi refinement stage. Yes, thank you, master. Lian Hong bows respectfully. Very well. The third elder nodded gently, watching Lian Hong depart before turning his gaze towards the middle-aged man. Any news? None. The middle-aged man replied with a resigned shake of his head. I pursued the investigation to the Shadow Forest, yet found not the slightest clue. However, the absence of any leads only strengthens the conviction that Yang Lai and his son have undoubtedly met with foul play. Otherwise, the coincidence of their simultaneous disappearance is too uncanny, with no word reaching their family. Upon hearing the middle-aged man's words, the third elder's expression grew somewhat grave. Not a single clue. If it were merely a matter of personal vendetta, it would be one thing. But what concerns me is, are you suggesting that the matter has come to the attention of the other elders? The middle-aged man's expression shifted, and he spoke in a hushed tone. The third elder pondered momentarily before shaking his head. Not yet, but we must remain vigilant. Should anyone uncover anything and covertly target the family, we could find ourselves at a disadvantage. Indeed, the middle-aged man replied respectfully with a nod. By the way, prepare yourself. The secret realm will soon be opening. I will endeavor to secure additional quotas for our disciples to hone their skills. Will that little fellow be attending as well? The middle-aged man inquired. That depends on circumstances. It hinges on whether he can achieve a breakthrough to the Qi refinement stage. It is a pity that I am not presiding over this inner door selection. I have heard that a prodigy named Shun Lian has emerged. In just a month's time, he not only succeeded in internal cultivation, but also ascended to the pinnacle of the first layer of Qi refinement. Such a gifted disciple should rightfully be under my command. The third elder lamented. Yet, upon hearing this, the middle-aged man's demeanor shifted dramatically, and he exclaimed, Shen Lian? Master, are you certain of that name? What's the matter? The third elder looked at him with curiosity. The latter spoke in a low voice. Master, during my investigation into the disappearance of Yang Lai and his son, I came across an outer door disciple named Shun Lian, who is reportedly participating in this inner door selection. I have yet to meet him. Could he possibly be the one? Oh, how intriguing. The coincidence is indeed remarkable. Unfortunately, this Shen Lian has already been taken as a disciple by Shao Qi, thus holding the status of a true disciple, making him not easily disposable. You should find a way to investigate discreetly without attracting attention, the third elder stated calmly. Yes, I shall attend to it immediately. The middle-aged man nodded and swiftly departed. In the courtyard, a figure moved with ethereal grace, surrounded by flickering cold light. There were no piercing sword cries nor explosive surges of spiritual energy, yet each sword strike tore through the air, carving deep grooves into the ground. Whoosh! Another brilliant flash ignited as Shun Lian abruptly halted, his breathing steady, as if the swift swordplay had not been his own. Unbeknownst to him, he had been practicing for an entire day and night. At last, he had begun to integrate the embryonic form of sword intent into all his techniques. Though still somewhat unrefined, its power had significantly increased compared to before. Most importantly, this day and night of practice had not rendered him fatigued. Rather, he felt increasingly invigorated and vibrant, leaving Shun Lian astonished. That should suffice. Upon ascending to the status of an inner disciple, I can also receive 2 more martial techniques. Shun Lian murmured softly. Previously, having strengthened his solitary sword technique to attain the embryonic form of sword intent, he became so exhilarated by the fusion of sword moves that he momentarily forgot this remarkable achievement. With his current prowess, possessing 2 martial skills equated to 200 skill points, if he were to allocate all of them to the embryonic sword intent, he could only imagine the potential increase in power, or perhaps even the elevation to true sword intent. The more he pondered, the greater his anticipation grew. Without delay, Shun Lian departed the courtyard and made his way toward the outer sect. Although the inner sect also boasted a scripture repository, it was exclusively accessible to disciples who had reached the foundation establishment stage. As for him, still in the Chi refinement stage following his recent promotion. He had to return to the outer sect to select martial skills. After choosing his techniques, he intended to revisit his original dwelling, as it was also time to address matters with Brother Lu. With these thoughts in mind, Shun Lian quickened his pace. Upon reaching the outer sect, he encountered numerous outer sect disciples along the way. Noticing the robe that signified his status as a true disciple, they all paused to pay their respects. Shun Lian nodded in acknowledgement, a silent greeting. Upon arriving at the scripture repository, the elder in charge greeted him with increasing courtesy. Without wasting any time, after a brief registration, Shun Lian entered the repository. Having visited previously, he was already familiar with the placement of the martial skills and navigated with ease, selecting 2 sword techniques in a mere quarter of an hour. Upon finishing his reading, the 200 skill points were promptly credited to him. Subsequently, he expended 13 skill points to elevate both yellow-level inferior sword techniques to perfection. The remaining 180 points were entirely allocated to the embryonic sword intent. Instantly, his comprehension of the underlying principles sharpened, as if he had grasped numerous connections in the ethereal realm. Shun Lian could sense his attack power surging once more. Regrettably, when he glanced at the system panel, he discovered that the section for the embryonic sword intent had not changed in the slightest. It remained as it had been, merely displaying the words embryonic sword intent without any level indication. Truly, such a capability to pierce the essence required a substantial amount of skill points for transformation. The current investment was evidently insufficient. Shun Lian murmured softly, a realization dawning within him. With that understanding, he resolved not to dwell on it any further and left the scripture repository, heading toward his previous residence. He recalled that Brother Lu's dwelling was merely 3 small wooden houses away, not too far. As he approached, he had already devised an excuse to take the other away. Yet upon arrival, he found the cabin entirely vacant. Brother Lu was not inside. The accommodations for outer sect disciples lacked protective formations, allowing easy access for inspection. To his surprise, Brother Lu was absent. Shun Lian furrowed his brow slightly and inquired among the nearby disciples. He learned that Brother Lu had departed to undertake a mission for the sect and had left just yesterday, with no indication of when he might return. To his dismay, he had arrived too late. After pondering for a moment, Shun Lian opted not to search elsewhere, but decided to return later to check again. Given his status as a true disciple, many outer sect disciples became exceedingly cautious upon encountering him, which made Shun Lian feel somewhat uncomfortable. Thus, he chose not to linger and made his way back to the inner sect. With no immediate objectives in mind, upon returning, Shun Lian slowed his pace. Having only entered the inner sect 2 days prior, he had scarcely explored the area. Thus, he took this opportunity to wander a bit. Before long, a magnificent edifice came into view, adorned with 3 grand characters inscribed in seal script, Martial Arts Arena. Previously, Elder 7 had introduced this place to the group while familiarizing them with the inner sect's environment. The Qingyun sect strictly prohibits disciples from engaging in private duels. However, should animosities arise, there must be a means of resolution, hence the establishment of this arena. Here, parties in conflict can engage in combat to determine a victor. Additionally, disciples wishing to validate their training may also come here to spar. Shun Lian, intrigued by the interior, promptly stepped inside. The martial arts arena was spacious, surrounded by arrays that isolated it from the outside, and it featured several colossal stages. At that moment, on one of the platforms, 2 inner sect disciples were locked in fierce combat. Although their exchanges were intense, Shun Lian discerned that neither bore any murderous intent. It appeared they were merely sparring. Is that not Shun Lian? Suddenly, a soft exclamation broke the air. Shun Lian turned to see a disciple clad in a red robe, whose face seemed somewhat familiar. After a moment of contemplation, he recalled that this individual was one of the 43 who had advanced alongside him just 2 days prior, marking their acquaintance. Greetings, Shun Lian said politely, nodding in acknowledgement. It truly is you, Brother Shun Lian. Have you ascended to the rank of an authentic disciple? The disciple gazed at Shun Lian's distinct robe, envy flickering in his eyes. With a smile, he continued, Indeed, we noticed Elder 7's particular favor towards you. It is astonishing that you have been accepted as a true disciple. You are truly remarkable. Oh, I merely consider myself fortunate, Shun Lian humbly responded. You are far too modest, brother, the disciple replied, shaking his head vigorously. His eyes brightened as he added, By the way, Brother Shun Lian, all of us here are from the same cohort that recently advanced. We are still unfamiliar with the combat techniques of the Chi refinement stage, so we have come to spar and validate our skills. Would you care to join us in the arena and offer us some guidance? Upon hearing this, Shun Lian followed the disciples' gaze and noticed that all present were indeed the disciples who had advanced with him 2 days ago. However, upon observing the ongoing battle, his enthusiasm waned significantly. It was inevitable, for he had already mastered the chi refinement insights bestowed by Elder 7 to their fullest extent, and his combat experience was at its zenith. It could be said that even if Elder 7 himself were to suppress his power to the chi refinement stage, he would not stand a chance against Shun Lian. Moreover, these newly advanced disciples were hardly his match. To Shun Lian, their skirmishes resembled children playing house, far too immature. He shook his head, lacking the inclination to step down and dominate the competition. Just as he was about to decline, an incongruous voice suddenly pierced the air. "You lot. Leave. This place is reserved for us." The tone was exceedingly arrogant. Shun Lian and the others turned to find a group of 7 or 8 individuals entering, all dressed in robes identical to Shun Lian's, denoting them as true disciples. The only distinction was the embroidered character on their sleeves, which read 3 instead of 7. They were the true disciples under Elder 3. Chapter 14. Confrontation with Lian Hong. Shun Lian's concealment. "Hey, on what grounds do you expel us?" Clearly, there are numerous vacant platforms. Indeed, this is a public area designated by the sect, not solely for your personal use. Just because you are disciples of the true lineage. What makes you so special? We have true lineage disciples here as well. Upon witnessing the arrogance of the opposing party, the crowd erupted in discontent. 2 inner disciples, who had been engaged in sparring, ceased their activities, leaping off the platform to join the others in a standoff. A true lineage disciple? Are you referring to him? A haughty young man stepped forward, seemingly the leader of the group. His gaze, filled with disdain, swept over Shun Lian, and upon noticing the inscription on his sleeve, his expression grew increasingly dismissive as he coldly remarked, "Ah, a disciple of the 7th Elder. You look unfamiliar. Are you the one who just ascended?" With a calm demeanor, Shun Lian nodded slightly. "I am Shun Lian, having just joined the 7th Elder's ranks yesterday." "So, you are unaware of the rules?" "What rules?" Shun Lian inquired, perplexed. "Xiao Jiao, enlighten this newcomer on the inner sect's common knowledge." The young man scoffed, appearing disinterested in elaborating further. Behind him, a portly disciple stepped forward, speaking in a deep voice. After listening to the explanation, Shun Lian and the other inner disciples began to grasp the situation. The so-called rules were merely a tacit agreement between the ordinary inner disciples and the true lineage disciples. The number of inner disciples in the Qingyun sect was considerable, yet there was but a single training ground. When the number of individuals needing to use the training ground exceeded its capacity, ordinary inner disciples were expected to yield to the true lineage disciples. If both parties held the status of true lineage disciples, their strengths would determine the outcome, with the weaker one stepping back voluntarily. Should there be any objections, a duel could be arranged, with the loser required to withdraw. In essence, it boiled down to a simple phrase: might makes right. After all, although they all belonged to the Qingyun sect, the martial skills and areas of focus possessed by each elder varied significantly. Thus, it was considered taboo for disciples under different elders to observe the sparring sessions of true lineage disciples. The higher echelons of the sect understood this, which is why they tacitly accepted the existence of this so-called rule. Well then, little ones, do not say I do not afford you an opportunity. After all, this Shun Lian is it? Regardless, you are a true lineage disciple. Your status is comparable to ours. If you are unwilling to concede, I can grant you a chance to challenge. Of course, since you are a newcomer, I shall not be overly harsh. Let us have you spar with our junior brother who has just joined. The victor may practice here. What do you say? The proud young man regarded Shun Lian with a condescending gaze. With numerous true lineage disciples under the 3rd Elder, they ranked first within the inner sect of Qingyun, and their considerable prowess had fostered a habit of arrogance, rendering them dismissive of Shun Lian. Initially, they had merely come to assist Lian Hong with his internal cultivation transition, intending to guide the newly joined junior brother in familiarizing himself with the combat techniques of the chi refinement stage. Unexpectedly encountering Shun Lian, the young man perceived that although Shun Lian bore the title of genius, having reached the pinnacle of the first layer of chi refinement, he was fundamentally on a different level compared to Lian Hong, who had advanced through battle. Shun Lian could hardly be considered his rival. Indeed, upon hearing those words, Shun Lian appeared somewhat hesitant. Observing his demeanor, the young man sneered immediately. "Are you afraid? If so, be swift and leave. Do not waste my time here. Remember to yield whenever you see us in the future, understood?" Upon hearing this, Shun Lian frowned. Initially, he had no desire to become embroiled in such trivial matters. His visit to the arena was merely out of curiosity, intending to observe without any obligation to defend the interests of those ordinary inner disciples, with whom he was not even acquainted. However, the young man's words were exceedingly offensive. Even a clay figurine would likely be provoked to anger. Irritated, Shun Lian's tone grew cold as he replied, "A contest is acceptable, but I find little interest in this arena. Perhaps we should add some stakes." "Oh, what stakes?" The young man seemed intrigued by Shun Lian's proposition. 10 low-grade spirit stones, Shun Lian stated nonchalantly. 10 low-grade spirit stones? Good heavens, that is quite a sum. As soon as Shun Lian's words fell, a murmur of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Spirit stones are the currency among cultivators, exceedingly precious. Most of them had only recently ascended to inner discipleship and possessed very little in reserve, typically just 1 or 2 stones each. Thus, the notion of wagering 10 low-grade spirit stones astonished them immensely. On the opposite side, Lian Hong also appeared somewhat hesitant, awkwardly squeezing his storage bag. Although he had been promoted to a true disciple, like the others, he had just joined and had similarly limited resources, possessing only 4 stones. The young man, noticing his expression, approached Lian Hong, patting him on the back and whispering, "Do not worry, junior brother, it is merely spirit stones. I have plenty. Just focus on defeating him, and I will cover any losses. Then I must thank you, senior brother. Not a problem." The young man waved dismissively before turning back to Shun Lian. "Let us proceed as you suggested, with 10 low-grade spirit stones as the stakes." Very well. With the agreement reached, Shun Lian saw no need for further dialogue and stepped onto the nearest arena platform. Lian Hong followed suit, and as both positioned themselves, they prepared to engage in their contest. The crowd gathered below to observe. Lian Hong took a deep breath, and in an instant, his demeanor shifted, his aura stabilizing. He gazed intently at Shun Lian, his eyes devoid of any doubt. With a swift motion, he drew his longsword, a sharp energy emanating from it. Truly, he was someone who had advanced through combat. There was indeed something intriguing about him. Shun Lian regarded Lian Hong with an approving nod before leisurely unsheathing his own sword, holding it in a remarkably relaxed manner. In the next moment, Lian Hong surged forward, his longsword aimed directly at Shun Lian's heart, executing a thrusting attack. The Qingyun sword technique, I see. Shun Lian discerned the opponent's swordplay at a glance. This technique was the most widely practiced martial art within the Qingyun sect, and many disciples had trained in it. Shun Lian had mastered it to perfection. Almost the instant Lian Hong made his move, countless countermeasures flashed through Shun Lian's mind, even accounting for all of Lian Hong's subsequent variations. With his capabilities, he could effortlessly counter this attack and instantly retaliate, defeating Lian Hong without difficulty. However, as the attack approached with alarming proximity, Shun Lian did not react as one might expect. Instead, a flicker of something inscrutable ignited within him, illuminating his gaze. He moved with deliberate slowness, positioning his sword horizontally. A gentle chime echoed as the 2 blades clashed. Lian Hong's eyes sparkled with intensity, seizing the moment's momentum. He swiftly altered his attack, the tip of his sword darting towards Shun Lian's throat like a striking serpent. Panic washed over Shun Lian, his complexion paling as he staggered back, barely evading this lethal strike. Humph, is this what they call a genius? Hardly. Observing Shun Lian's clumsy evasion, Lian Hong felt a surge of confidence, pressing his advantage as his sword came lunging forward with relentless ferocity. Chapter 15. The challenge from the 5th layer of Qi refinement. Shun Lian hastily dodged, yet his movements faltered against the swiftness of the blade. As the sword's edge drew perilously closer, evasion became futile. In desperation, he executed a clumsy roll on the ground, narrowly escaping the deadly thrust. The spectators, a multitude of inner sect disciples, fell into a hushed silence. It seemed evident that senior brother Shun Lian was no match for Lian Hong, who had advanced through the second round, showcasing formidable combat prowess. Indeed, although senior brother Shun Lian possessed remarkable talent, having reached the pinnacle of the 1st layer of Qi refinement, at this juncture, the abundance of spiritual energy bore little influence on practical combat. A few inner disciples whispered anxiously among themselves, their faces etched with concern. Not far away, in stark contrast to the worried crowd, the true disciples of the 3rd elder wore expressions of amusement, utterly unfazed. The lead youth, arms crossed, observed the arena with a relaxed demeanor. The unfolding events were entirely within his expectations. In his eyes, Shun Lian's defeat was inevitable, merely a question of time. It was even conceivable that he might soon abandon his sword and surrender. Yet, as time elapsed, Shun Lian's defense, although fraught with peril, remarkably endured. Strangely, after an entire quarter of an hour, he bore no visible injuries. Could he truly withstand for so long? The youth furrowed his brow, poised to advise Lian Hong to conclude the battle swiftly. At that moment, an unexpected turn unfolded in the arena. Lian Hong seized upon a flaw in Shun Lian's defense, his sword darting forward with lightning speed. Shun Lian, in a frantic bid to evade, neglected to watch his footing. As he shifted his right foot, he inadvertently tripped over a deep gash in the ground, stumbling awkwardly, his defensive posture thrown into disarray. In a desperate attempt to regain balance, his hands flailed instinctively in the air. This singular motion transformed the dynamics of their clash. Lian Hong, who had been pursuing Shun Lian, found his trajectory disrupted as Shun Lian's erratic movements caused his blade to carve an unintended arc in the air. One such arc unexpectedly struck Lian Hong's wrist. With a swift slice, Lian Hong felt a sharp pain radiate through his wrist, causing his hand to involuntarily release its grip. The sword clattered to the ground, plunging the arena into an eerie silence. As Shun Lian steadied himself, he turned to see Lian Hong clutching his wrist, standing there with a grim expression, a hint of astonishment crossing his features. With gritted teeth, Lian Hong finally sighed, conceding, "I have lost." There was no way out. He had no choice but to concede defeat. Shun Lian's sword had just severed his tendons, leaving him unable to even lift his weapon. What could he possibly do now? I concede. Shun Lian, belatedly realizing the situation, repeatedly clasped his hands in acknowledgement. Lian Hong said nothing further. He bent down to retrieve his long sword, his expression dark as he leapt off the stage. "My apologies, senior brother. It was my negligence," Lian Hong said, lowering his head in shame as he approached the young man. "No matter. This is not your fault," the young man replied, shaking his head. He had witnessed the previous events unfold and could only lament Shun Lian's fortuitous victory in such a manner. Victorious? He actually won. Ha ha, senior brother Shun Lian is impressive. Let you revel in your triumph. Humph. Now, it's time for you to exit the martial arena, isn't it? Do not forget to leave your wager behind. We had agreed on an additional 10 inferior spirit stones, shouted a multitude of inner disciples. They had long been displeased with the arrogant demeanor of the true disciples under the third elder, and now that they had seized the opportunity, they could not resist mocking him. Regardless of how Shun Lian triumphed, the fact remained that he had won. Hearing the uproar, the leading young man's expression turned frigid as he cast a cold glance at the crowd. "You need not remind me. I, Cui Zheng, am not one to default on a mere wager." With that, he retrieved 10 inferior spirit stones from his storage bag and tossed them towards Shun Lian. Naturally, Shun Lian accepted without hesitation. However, after settling the wager, Cui Zheng and his companions did not turn to leave. Instead, they turned their gaze towards Shun Lian and continued. "Though you emerged victorious just now, in my view, it was purely by chance. Your strength does not convince us. Therefore, I wish to challenge you once more. Do you dare to accept? Of course, according to your rules, this match will also have a wager. How about betting 20 inferior spirit stones?" Cui Zheng's eyes burned with intensity as he fixed his gaze upon Shun Lian. "Oh, what is this? Are you unable to bear the loss? Indeed. We agreed that the loser would leave the arena, and now you wish to continue? It appears you are merely bullying him. How audacious to challenge someone at the first level when you are already at the fifth." The inner disciples scoffed. It was clear they were not intimidated by Cui Zheng and his faction. Cui Zheng's forehead twitched with anger at their mockery, and he shot a cold glare at them, saying in a chilling tone, "I advise you to keep quiet. This is the inner sect, where one can converse equally with true disciples. Only true disciples, understand?" The inner disciples rolled their eyes at his words. Though they feigned indifference, their bodies betrayed them. They refrained from further rebuttals. It was evident that Cui Zheng was genuinely enraged, and provoking him further at this juncture could lead to dire consequences. After all, he had the backing of the third elder, a far cry from these ordinary inner disciples without any support. Seeing that the crowd had fallen silent, Cui Zheng exhaled, as if realizing that challenging Shun Lian at the fifth level might be somewhat humiliating if word got out. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke, stating that this duel was merely a friendly exchange, unrelated to the rights of the training ground. Regardless of the outcome, we shall withdraw. What say you? Without making him wait long, Shun Lian met Cui Zheng's provocative gaze and slowly nodded. Upon seeing this, Cui Zheng immediately sprang onto the stage, positioning himself opposite Shun Lian. "Let us begin." There was little more said. Cui Zheng seemed eager for a swift conclusion. With a low shout, his long sword was drawn, emanating a blade aura half a foot long, as he swept it towards Shun Lian. He held Shun Lian in utter disdain, considering him merely a practitioner of the first layer of Qi, whose combat abilities were rather lackluster. In his view, it would take no more than 3 moves to defeat Shun Lian. However, as the sword swept forth, Shun Lian's actions exceeded Cui Zheng's expectations. No, to be precise, it astonished not only Cui Zheng, but everyone present. Shun Lian's figure flickered like a specter, and in an instant, multiple phantoms emerged, effortlessly evading Cui Zheng's rapid assault. There was no trace of clumsiness whatsoever. Chapter 16. Just how will you be trapped? This rascal was concealing his strength. Observing Shun Lian's effortless evasive maneuvers, Cui Zheng's mind suddenly awakened to the truth. He realized that Shun Lian had been hiding his capabilities during the battle with Lian Hong. Even that seemingly coincidental final strike had been a deliberate act. Cui Zheng wanted to curse, but it was too late. After dodging his attack, Shun Lian advanced instead of retreating, thrusting his sword at an acute angle towards Cui Zheng's throat. Cui Zheng hastily drew his sword to block. The sound of metal clashing resonated as he barely managed to deflect Shun Lian's blade. Yet before he could breathe a sigh of relief, whoosh! A half-foot sword aura suddenly erupted from the tip of Shun Lian's sword. The blade, which had already deviated from its attacking trajectory, was instantaneously extended by the aura, slicing through Cui Zheng's side. Blood gushed forth. Stung by the intense pain, Cui Zheng staggered back 3 steps before regaining his balance. Looking at Shun Lian, the sword was retracted, and the sword aura vanished, as if that moment had been an illusion. Yet the tangible wound on his body incessantly reminded Cui Zheng that he had not been mistaken. Having only ascended to the inner sect 2 days prior, Shun Lian had already comprehended the utilization of sword aura. What a genius! Cui Zheng's gaze towards Shun Lian was now fraught with gravity. At this moment, Shun Lian closed in once more, his blade sweeping through the air, creating 3 blossoms of sword light that targeted Cui Zheng from above, middle, and below, an approach of both reality and illusion. Cui Zheng found it impossible to discern the true fatal strike, leaving him no choice but to continue retreating helplessly. Meanwhile, Shun Lian shadowed him closely, denying him any opportunity to adjust for a counterattack. Eventually, Cui Zheng found himself at the edge of the stage, with nowhere left to evade. Just as he clenched his teeth, ready to retaliate despite his injuries, Shun Lian's sword tip flashed with light and his movements quickened. Before Cui Zheng could react, a deep sword mark was carved into his chest. Bang! With a single strike, Cui Zheng was rendered utterly defenseless, tumbling directly off the stage. Blood slowly oozed from his chest and ribs, soaking through his garments. Shun Lian sheathed his sword and stood at the edge of the arena. Gazing down at Cui Zheng with a commanding presence, "You concede. Now, hand over the 20 low-grade spirit stones. You scoundrel! You've deliberately deceived me, concealing your true strength." Cui Zheng exclaimed, his face flushed with anger, his heart heavy with frustration as he shouted at Shun Lian. "Indeed, I concealed my strength to ensnare you. What of it?" Shun Lian boldly acknowledged, continuing, "A bet is a bet. One cannot expect to reclaim what they have willingly discarded. You were the one eager to challenge me. I did not solicit your challenge. Of course, if anyone else is dissatisfied, they may step forward and try their luck. Let us establish the stakes as per usual." As Shun Lian spoke, his calm gaze swept across the crowd. The numerous true disciples, caught in his stare, instinctively lowered their heads to avoid his scrutiny. It was evident that the most formidable presence in the arena was Cui Zheng, whose defeat was so decisive that he had not even the slightest chance to retaliate. The onlookers were not foolish. Who would dare provoke Shun Lian at such a moment? Is there no one willing to speak? Upon noticing the silence, Shun Lian's gaze returned to Cui Zheng's face. "Now, hand over the spirit stones. My time is limited. I have no leisure for idle chatter." "Very well, Shun Lian. Remember, my spirit stones are not so easily acquired. Someone will seek retribution." Cui Zheng glared coldly at Shun Lian, painfully extracting 20 low-grade spirit stones from his storage bag and tossing them over. With a total fortune of little over 40 stones, losing 4/5 in this manner was excruciating. "Delighted to oblige. I, Shun Lian, am always ready for a wager," he responded, collecting the spirit stones with a nonchalant air. Before dismissing the gathered crowd and leaping off the stage, leaving behind the true disciples and the inner sect members. Shun Lian's confrontation with Cui Zheng was not a mere impulsive act or an attempt to champion the ordinary inner disciples. His actions were, in fact, the result of careful consideration. Having recently ascended to the rank of true disciple, he had reached a temporary pinnacle. To further secure the sect's resources, he needed to let his strength speak for itself. Thus, he chose to reveal a modicum of his prowess, hoping to capture the attention of the sect, particularly that of Elder Qi. Only with the endorsement of Elder Qi and the sect could he access greater resources and expedite his advancement. Without exposing that he had already attained the pinnacle of Qi refinement, he aimed to gradually elevate his status, crafting an image of an exceptional genius. Even if immediate access to foundational cultivation methods was unattainable, acquiring various martial skills for free was also enticing. After all, every martial skill represented tangible skill points to Shun Lian. For him, the more skill points, the better. He was capable of absorbing as many as came his way. As anticipated, shortly thereafter, news of Shun Lian's overwhelming victory over Cui Zheng, who was at the 5th layer of Qi refinement, spread swiftly throughout the inner sect. Showcasing his prowess at the pinnacle of the 1st layer, he was awarded the title of the first genius of the inner sect by everyone. Following this was the summons from the 7th elder. Upon his arrival, Shun Lian performed the customary greeting. The 7th elder's gaze towards him grew increasingly amiable, a smile that he could not conceal playing at the corners of his mouth. When he sensed the subtle shift in Shun Lian's aura, the elder's smile deepened. Remarkable. In just 5 days since his initiation, he had already ascended to the second layer of Qi refining. This child is indeed teachable. It is thanks to the insights on Qi refinement bestowed by my master that the disciple has gained such enlightenment, enabling such rapid progress. Shun Lian clasped his hands in salute and spoke softly. The strength he displayed was merely that of a recent breakthrough into the second layer of Qi refining. The technique he obtained from the system lottery, the breath-concealing technique, was exceedingly powerful, rendering it undetectable even to the seventh elder, who was at the golden core stage. Ha ha! You rascal! The seventh elder chuckled heartily, pointing at Shun Lian. The insights on Qi refinement I gifted you primarily revolve around practical combat at the Qi refining stage. They offer little assistance in enhancing your cultivation. Esteemed master, you are mistaken. It is precisely because I studied the insights that I resolved many confusions in my heart, allowing my thoughts to flow freely. Thus, my subsequent practice has indeed become twice as effective with half the effort. How can one say it has provided no help? Shun Lian maintained a calm demeanor, his face neutral as he boldly flattered. In terms of audacity, this time traveler had only just begun to demonstrate a fraction of his potential. Yet he had already made the seventh elder feel particularly pleased. The seventh elder shook his head with a smile, fully aware that Shun Lian was flattering him. Yet his spirits remained high. After all, who does not wish for a gifted disciple who respects his teacher? Enough. I have heard that you excel in sword techniques. Why not demonstrate for me? I would like to see your skills. The seventh elder proposed. Yes, master. Shun Lian bowed respectfully, then stepped into the center, drawing his sword to perform the most widely practiced foundational sword technique of the Qingyun sect, the Qingyun sword art. After approximately half a cup of tea's time, Shun Lian completed his demonstration. The entire set of sword techniques flowed like water, executed seamlessly, captivating the audience's gaze. Notably, Shun Lian infused his own insights into the performance, occasionally channeling spiritual energy, causing the sword light to flicker and dance, amplifying the technique's power and complexity several-fold. The seventh elder observed in silence, his eyes shimmering with intrigue. Initially, he intended to offer Shun Lian some guidance, but he was taken aback by the depth of the young man's comprehension of swordsmanship, finding no faults whatsoever, especially the sword light transformed by the Qi refinement insights. The elder mused, even he would struggle to achieve better. Remarkable. Your technique is both offensive and defensive, filled with unpredictability. Your understanding of the sword path is unparalleled in my lifetime, the seventh elder praised sincerely. After a brief pause, he added a cautionary reminder. However, remember that the path of cultivation is akin to rowing against the current. If you do not advance, you will regress. There are countless masters in this world. Do not become complacent or arrogant due to a momentary breakthrough. Always maintain a sense of reverence to forge ahead with vigor. Although your swordplay is exquisite, facing truly formidable opponents may render it less effective. The saying 1's strength overcomes 10 techniques is not mere words. Yes, disciple understands and shall heed master's teachings. Shun Lian respectfully nodded. The seventh elder nodded with satisfaction, pondering for a moment before producing 2 volumes of martial techniques from his robes and tossing them to Shun Lian. These are 2 swordsmanship manuals. You may study them at your leisure, he said. Thank you, master, Shun Lian replied, a glimmer of joy illuminating his eyes as he promptly stowed them away, secretly noting that 200 skill points had just come into his possession. By the way, I have heard some news regarding the young ones under the third elder's tutelage. In the realm of Qi training, victory in combat cannot solely be determined by one's level of cultivation. While the third elder has many disciples, there are few who could genuinely defeat you. However, you must be wary of one individual, his senior disciple, Lu Yi, who stands at the pinnacle of the 10th level of Qi training. His swordsmanship is formidable and quite troublesome. Fortunately, he has been away on a sect mission these days. But when the sect opens the secret realm shortly, he will return, and you may encounter him then, the seventh elder cautioned. Understood, Shun Lian mentally noted this name. You may leave now. I have imparted all that is necessary. The seventh elder gestured for him to depart. Shun Lian respectfully withdrew. Upon returning to his humble courtyard, Shun Lian examined the 2 martial techniques he had received and discovered they were both high-grade yellow-level swordsmanship. After studying them, he acquired 200 skill points. He immediately expended over 30 points to elevate both techniques to perfection. Due to their high-grade yellow classification, the cost of enhancement was somewhat elevated. With over 160 skill points remaining, he continued his usual practice of allocating them entirely to the embryonic form of sword intent. In a profound sense, Shun Lian felt his comprehension of sword intent deepen significantly. Yet, the system panel revealed no change, still displaying only the 4-star characters for embryonic sword intent. He had grown accustomed to this. After all, it was normal for such a fundamental essence to require hundreds of skill points without manifesting a qualitative transformation. In the subsequent days, life seemed to briefly return to tranquility. Shun Lian spent his days idly, as his cultivation was derived from skill points. Unlike others who labored tirelessly in their training, he had already mastered various sword techniques. Meanwhile, no other true disciples from the Third Elder's faction sought trouble. Just as his master had predicted, the outcome of the duel between Cui Zheng and Shun Lian was evident to all, showcasing Shun Lian's effortless victory. The onlookers were uncertain of his limits, and thus, they refrained from acting rashly. Those who advanced to the inner sect and successfully became true disciples were no fools. Without absolute certainty of victory, they would not foolishly provoke him. During this period, Shun Lian made it a point to wander the outer sect every few days in search of Brother Lu. However, Lu had yet to return to the sect, seemingly vanished. This led Shun Lian to suspect that Lu might have become aware of something and was intentionally avoiding him. With no better course of action available, he also found his progress stagnating due to the lack of new martial techniques to study. Determined not to squander his time, he contemplated accepting a sect mission to venture outside for further experience, even though the martial techniques available for purchase outside were rather expensive. It seemed he had no other option. Acquiring something is certainly preferable to having nothing at all. Earning a few more spirit stones is desirable. I do not seek to obtain the foundational techniques, but acquiring several low-level martial arts manuals would be quite delightful. The tasks in the Qingyun sect are categorized into two types. One consists of low-level collection tasks, which all outer disciples must complete within a specified time frame, for the sect will not support its members without cause. The other type encompasses the high-level tasks meant for inner disciples. These disciples can choose their tasks freely, and the execution period is considerably more flexible, allowing for at least one task to be completed annually. Moreover, fulfilling these tasks brings rewards from the sect, and any additional gains during the execution of a task belong entirely to the disciple. Upon leaving his humble abode, Shun Lian made his way to the task distribution center. An ordinary inner disciple was in charge there. Upon noticing Shun Lian clad in the attire of an esteemed disciple, the disciple promptly bowed respectfully and greeted him. Greetings, senior brother. Hello, Shun Lian replied with a nod. Is there a task directory? May I have a look? Of course. The disciple handed Shun Lian a jade slip. Taking it, Shun Lian pressed it against his forehead, holding his breath in concentration, and a vast array of tasks immediately manifested in his mind. The tasks varied widely, each accompanied by a brief description. After a moment of contemplation, Shun Lian selected one, returned the jade slip, and stated, I will take the task numbered 079. As he spoke, he extended his identity token towards the disciple. The disciple quickly accepted it, recording the information on a spiritual device. Upon seeing the displayed identity details, he couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. So, you are senior brother Shun Lian. You know me? News has spread within the inner sect that a first-layer Qi practitioner can effortlessly defeat those at the fifth layer. You are universally acknowledged as the foremost genius. The disciple exclaimed with admiration. Shun Lian, who preferred to remain low-key, had not boasted after defeating Cui Zheng, hence many in the inner sect knew his name. Yet few had truly encountered him. It was merely a stroke of luck. I cannot claim to be the top genius. Such praise is unwarranted. Shun Lian humbly shook his head. After retrieving his token, he chose not to engage in further conversation and turned to leave. The disciple watched his retreating figure until Shun Lian vanished from sight, a flicker of concealed excitement gleaming in his eyes. He took out a communication device from his robe, inputting a message before forming hand seals to send it. Shortly after, a green figure materialized beside him, appearing almost ethereal. Greetings, esteemed steward. The disciple bowed deeply upon seeing the figure. This green apparition was the middle-aged man who had previously conferred with the third elder, now serving as an inner sect steward. Is it confirmed that it is Shun Lian? The middle-aged man inquired directly, without preamble. Confirmed. I verified the identity token. There is no mistake, the disciple replied respectfully. What task has he taken? Number 079. This one. The disciple selected a jade slip and handed it to the middle-aged man. Upon receiving and examining it, the middle-aged man nodded slightly, returning the jade slip to the disciple. Suddenly, a fierce intensity radiated from his eyes, exuding an imposing presence akin to a mountain. The inner disciple, unaccustomed to such pressure, collapsed to the ground, drenched in perspiration. Remember, this matter must remain a secret. You have never sent me a message, nor have I ever visited you, understood? The middle-aged man warned sternly. Yes, disciple understands, the other party replied, trembling in fear and nodding vigorously. Satisfied with the reaction, the middle-aged man softened his tone, adopting a more amiable demeanor as he gently reassured, rest assured, as long as you obey my instructions, I shall not treat you unfairly. With that, he produced 10 low-grade spirit stones from his robe and tossed them to the other. Upon receiving the stones, the disciple's eyes sparkled with excitement. As he repeatedly expressed his gratitude, "Thank you, my lord, thank you. I will never speak of this, not even to my own parents." "That is good," the middle-aged man said, patting the disciple's shoulder. After a moment of contemplation, he swiftly vanished without a sound. Since the last elder had instructed him to investigate discreetly, the middle-aged man had begun his preparations. He uncovered all information related to Shun Lian, but alas, Shun Lian was merely an obscure figure within the outer sect. The useful information was scant. It appeared that he had just begun to make his mark in the inner sect selection. The only lead was that Wang Hui had left Qingyun's sect with Shun Lian shortly before his disappearance. Initially, this did not seem significant, but later, the middle-aged man discovered that Shun Lian had sought out Lu Qian several times in the outer sect. According to his investigation, Shun Lian was not well acquainted with Lu Qian, and their relationship was rather ordinary, with no notable interactions. Lu Qian himself was unremarkable, except for one detail. He had witnessed Shun Lian and Wang Hui leaving Qingyun's sect together. Lu Qian had mentioned this to him. If Shun Lian was searching for Lu Qian for this reason, it warranted further examination. With this thought, the middle-aged man's suspicion towards Shun Lian intensified. He had an instinctive feeling that the disappearance of Wang Hui and his son, if not directly caused by Shun Lian, was undoubtedly connected to him. However, due to Shun Lian's status as a true disciple, the middle-aged man could not apprehend him directly for interrogation. He could only wait patiently for the right opportunity. Just then, Shun Lian was assigned a task, presenting the perfect chance for him. Deep in thought, the middle-aged man quietly departed from the sect, accelerating to his utmost speed, soon locating Shun Lian. Yet, upon seeing him, he refrained from immediate action, choosing instead to stealthily follow, uncertain of his intentions. Meanwhile, Shun Lian remained oblivious to the fact that he was being tracked. His mind was occupied with the details of his task. Task number 079 required him to assist the villagers in capturing a beast and uncovering the underlying cause. The task location was less than 30 miles from Qingyun's sect, at Xinjia village. On the surface, the task appeared simple, yet there were two critical aspects to consider. First, Xinjia village was in close proximity to Qingyun's sect, and its location contradicted the shadow forest. Logically, while beasts occasionally emerged from the shadow forest, how could they traverse past Qingyun's sect without causing disturbances in the intervening villages, only to assault Xinjia village? What was the origin of this beast? Secondly, the task of assisting the villagers in capturing the ferocious beasts was not recently announced. In fact, it has been open for nearly half a year. Previously, disciples from the Qingyun sect had ventured forth to address the issue and successfully vanquished the beasts. However, it was not long before new creatures emerged, once again assailing Chun family village, creating the impression that these beasts could never be eradicated. The Qingyun sect was perplexed by this situation, continually reiterating the rewards for the task. Presently, the reward has escalated to 100 low-grade spirit stones, granted upon uncovering the cause and resolving the task comprehensively. It was this substantial reward that enticed Shun Lian to accept the mission. Contemplating the task details in his mind, Shun Lian arrived at Chun family village after half an hour, following the map. The village was sparsely populated, comprising fewer than 100 households. In this realm of mortal nations, the administrative levels are categorized from highest to lowest as continent, province, city, town, and village. The Qingyun sect stands as the dominant power in the southern region of Yan Kingdom, located in Baodong Prefecture, with the nearest major city being Panyang Prefecture. As the world is rife with various ferocious beasts, the mortal nations can only survive by relying on powerful sections. Consequently, a significant portion of the taxes imposed on the mortal populace is required to be paid to these formidable sects, resulting in exorbitant burdens of taxes that render survival exceedingly arduous for ordinary citizens. The influence of the Qingyun sect extends across the southern two continents of Yan Kingdom, and thus a considerable portion of the taxes from these regions is allocated to the sect. In exchange, the Qingyun sect is responsible for safeguarding the safety of the mortal populace within these two continents. Occasionally, when citizens within the cities find the taxes unbearable and struggle to make ends meet, they spontaneously congregate in the wilderness outside the cities to evade tax obligations, albeit at the risk of facing various dangers in the wild. However, the populace demonstrates shrewdness, choosing to settle near powerful sects and voluntarily offering a portion of their earnings as a form of protection fee each year, thereby alleviating some of the state-imposed taxes and allowing them to survive. Ordinarily, such practices would be deemed illegal in the mortal nations and absolutely prohibited. Nevertheless, due to the tacit approval of the major sects, the higher echelons of the mortal realm dare not carry out indiscriminate purges, resulting in a multitude of small villages scattered throughout the land, each complex in its own right. The closer one is to a major sect. The more illegal villages tend to proliferate. Shun family village is a quintessential example of such an illegal settlement, predominantly composed of kin and close relations of the Qin clan. From a distance, Shun Lian observed that Qin family village appeared quite dilapidated, with most of the houses constructed from wooden planks and thatched with straw. The perimeter was encircled by a fence made of stones and wooden stakes, with many sections damaged and yet to be repaired. Just as he approached the outskirts of the village, he heard intense roars of the ferocious beasts and the shouts of humans nearby, creating a chaotic scene. Has he coincidentally arrived just in time for a beast attack? It seems fortuitous indeed. He paused momentarily, a glint of surprise flickering in his eyes. Murmuring softly, he quickened his pace, hastening toward the source of the commotion. Upon rounding the side of the village, a harrowing scene of battle unfolded before him. Chapter 19. A violent encounter with the terrifying iron-backed centipede. There lay a formidable golden-armored iron-backed centipede, thrashing and roaring outside the Chun family village. Its immense size was staggering, measuring over 10 meters in length. Nearby, 7 or 8 villagers, armed with various weapons, desperately engaged in combat with it. The villagers' movements indicated they had practiced some rudimentary martial arts, yet their abilities were woefully inadequate, likely at the 2nd or 3rd level of physical refinement. In stark contrast, the iron-backed centipede was a creature equivalent to the 10th level of physical refinement, its natural physique far surpassing that of humans. Furthermore, this centipede was renowned for its formidable defensive capabilities, rendering these ordinary villagers utterly incapable of posing a threat. One villager, fueled by rage, charged forward with bloodshot eyes, wielding a massive hammer aimed at the centipede. The creature, unfazed by the impending attack, merely twisted its body slightly to present its glistening metallic back. The impact resounded like a blow against colossal steel, producing a deep, thunderous echo. The villagers staggered back, shaken by the force of the strike. The iron-backed centipede, having sustained no injury, swiftly lashed its tail, delivering a crushing blow to the villager. With a sickening sound, the villager spewed forth a mouthful of blood, sent flying through the air, and collapsed unconscious upon the ground. With its initial strike successful, the centipede's ferocity intensified. Its half-meter-long, razor-sharp mandibles lunged forward, disregarding the villager's futile assaults. To the centipede, these attacks felt akin to mere tickles, incapable of inflicting harm. Before it, the targeted villager paled in terror as he witnessed the mandibles rushing towards him. Though he wished to evade the strike, his legs turned to jelly, rendering him incapable of any evasive action. As the half-meter-long mandibles aimed for his chest, his life seemed all but lost. At that moment, however, a fleeting shadow appeared before him. Before the villager could comprehend the situation, the massive mandibles descended with ferocity. The subsequent sound of impact was accompanied by a sharp crack, echoing through the air. The figure before him remained unyielding, while the colossal iron-backed centipede was sent hurtling backward as if struck by a locomotive, tumbling several dozen meters before crashing to the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. The villager stood in stunned silence, his expression one of bewilderment. At a loss for words. "Might I inquire if you are a disciple of the Qinyan sect?" asked one astute villager, recognizing the figure clad in a crimson robe adorned with black patterns. "Indeed, step back. I shall handle this beast," the newcomer replied coolly. The one who had intervened was none other than Shun Lian. Upon hearing his response, the villagers erupted with joy, relief washing over them as they expressed their gratitude and hastily retreated to the safety of the village. The rescued villager glanced back as he fled, spotting a severed mandible lying on the ground. "By the heavens, did I just break that? What immense strength must it possess?" he marveled, staring in awe at Shun Lian's retreating figure. At that moment, Shun Lian sprang into action once more, charging towards the iron-backed centipede. The creature, having rolled on the ground and enraged by the loss of its mandible, lashed out with its formidable tail as it perceived Shun Lian's approach. Shun Lian maintained a tranquil gaze, effortlessly evading the onslaught with a graceful leap. He refrained from drawing his sword. Instead, he clenched his fist and positioned himself before the iron-backed centipede. With a resounding thud, his punch landed squarely on the creature's head, sending it crashing to the ground with a force akin to that of a pile driver, creating a deep crater upon impact. The creature, momentarily dazed, struggled to regain its senses. Shun Lian gently descended to the ground, his expression unyielding, and approached the centipede, seizing the sharp spike at the end of its tail. The massive form of the iron-backed centipede dwarfed him, resembling a human next to a chick. Yet, this seemingly diminutive figure unleashed an unimaginable strength. With a slight tug, Shun Lian hoisted the centipede's tail, then, with a sudden burst of power, swung it forward as if wielding a sturdy club. With a resounding crash, the colossal body of the ironback centipede was flung to the ground, producing a thunderous roar. Shun Lian did not release his grip, instead maintaining his hold as he swung his arm in a circular motion, propelling the centipede backward. The earth trembled with each violent impact, causing the villagers behind to stand in stunned silence. Each strike reverberated, as if the ground itself quaked, deeply resonating in the hearts of the onlookers. After delivering a flurry of blows, Shun Lian finally released the sharp spike, discarding the ironback centipede onto the ground. At this moment, the once formidable creature lay in a pitiful state, its armor marred with cracks and numerous dents, covered in a layer of dust, devoid of any luster. Shun Lian brushed off his hands and stood expressionless. Behind him, the villagers swallowed hard, eager to express their gratitude, yet intimidated by the display of Shun Lian's ferocity. They hesitated to approach. Suddenly, the gigantic form of the ironback centipede twitched on the ground, startling the villagers who instinctively recoiled, casting fearful glances in its direction. It was still alive? Be careful, immortal! One villager shouted in alarm. Shun Lian remained composed, fully aware that he had not killed the ironback centipede intentionally. Given his prowess, a single punch would have sufficed to end its life, but he had chosen this course deliberately. His objective was to uncover the reasons behind the relentless assaults on Chun family village by these beasts. Beasts of the refining body stage possessed limited intelligence, acting largely on instinct. Such creatures typically attack for a few reasons: hunger-driven predation or the intrusion of humans or other beasts into their territory. Every beast possessed an innate territorial instinct, rarely straying from their domain. Shun Lian pondered the peculiar phenomenon of so many creatures defying their instincts to leave the shadow forest, repeatedly assaulting Chun family village. Thus, everything he had just done was aimed at inflicting pain and instilling fear in the enormous ironback centipede, observing where it would flee to. The colossal creature writhed on the ground for a moment, seemingly regaining consciousness. It then lifted its head, shook it, and turned to see Shun Lian calmly standing beside it. Upon catching sight of Shun Lian, the centipede's massive pupils suddenly contracted, and its body swiftly recoiled several meters, curling into a tight ball, evidently terrified. Shun Lian merely smiled slightly, making no further movements. After a brief moment of curling up, the centipede, noticing Shun Lian's lack of approach, cautiously attempted to unfurl its body. Shuffling back half a meter, Shun Lian remained unmoved. Observing this, the centipede quickly twisted and, like the wind, scurried away in haste. It was as if Shun Lian were its natural enemy, and it exerted all its strength to flee rapidly. Shun Lian observed the centipede's retreat until it was nearly out of sight before gracefully rising and silently trailing behind. Unbeknownst to him, a faint yellow figure was quietly following in the distance behind him. Chapter 20. The Cruel Truth, the Fury of the Ants due to its massive size. The ironback centipede kicked up clouds of dust as it scurried across the ground. From afar, it appeared as a yellow mist rapidly vanishing, allowing Shun Lian to pursue with ease. Thus, after over an hour of pursuit, the centipede's movements began to slow as it burrowed behind a desolate mound of earth. Shun Lian cautiously approached to investigate, discovering that, obscured by thorny shrubs, there lay a pitch-black cave behind the mound. The centipede had indeed entered there. After a moment of contemplation, he held his breath and focused, leaping into the darkness. Beneath the surface was a deep passageway, seemingly a naturally formed underground fissure, expansive and reminiscent of karst topography from a previous life. Shun Lian silently channeled his spiritual energy, enhancing his vision to penetrate the darkness effortlessly. Following the traces left by the centipede's movements, he pressed onward. After a short while, a glimmer of light suddenly beckoned from ahead. Shun Lian immediately softened his footsteps, approaching slowly. At that moment, a vague whisper drifted toward him from the forefront. How heavily injured it is. It seems we've encountered those damned disciples of the Qingyun sect again. Alas, thankfully the ironback centipede is resilient, or I would have to venture into the shadow forest to capture another. As Shun Lian drew closer, the voice grew increasingly distinct. At the end of the passage, after rounding a bend, he beheld a vast cavern, measuring several dozen meters in circumference. The ground was adorned with rudely carved stone tables and benches, and torches flickered nearby, casting a soft yellow glow across the space. A frail figure, with disheveled gray hair, sat cross-legged in the center, seemingly engrossed in the preparation of some herbs. The ironback centipede lay obediently beside this figure, appearing remarkably docile. Is this the mastermind behind the repeated assaults on Chun family village? Upon seeing the individual, Shun Lian's understanding deepened. He immediately ceased to conceal himself, stepping forward. Who goes there? Upon hearing a sound, the individual immediately turned with heightened vigilance. Only upon discovering that it was merely Shun Lian did he let out a slight sigh of relief. However, The iron-backed centipede beside him was startled, retracting its body into a tight coil. As Shun Lian observed the person, he noticed several gashes adorning the man's face, reminiscent of sword wounds, marring much of his cheek and presenting a rather grotesque appearance. One of the wounds had even blinded him in one eye, leaving him with a single eye glaring at Shun Lian. Clad in red and black, you are a true disciple of the Qingyan sect. Upon seeing Shun Lian's attire, a deep-seated hatred flickered in the man's solitary eye. His discernment was commendable. He recognized the garb. Shun Lian nodded nonchalantly and addressed him. Given this knowledge, do you still dare to provoke the village under Qingyan sect's protection and wreak havoc indiscriminately? Do you not realize the trouble you invite upon yourself? Trouble? Humph. Do you think in my current state I fear any trouble? The man retorted, pointing to his scarred cheek. Is it the Qingyan sect that has reduced you to this? Shun Lian inquired, furrowing his brow in speculation. Qingyan sect, huh? Indeed, it was your disciples who have brought me to this plight. Feng Jitong, I shall never forget him. Nor that wretched Chen Lin. Shun Lian's question seemed to trigger something within the man, who gritted his teeth and began to speak vehemently. After a prolonged monologue lasting nearly the duration of a tea's brewing, Shun Lian began to comprehend the narrative. It was, after all, an all-too-familiar tale of love entangled in a convoluted triangle. The man's name was Yusheng, once a disciple of a small sect nearby. Before joining the sect, he was an ordinary citizen of Xianyong town, having grown up alongside his childhood friend Chen Lin, with whom he was on the verge of betrothal. When the small sect called for disciples, Yusheng, by a stroke of luck, was chosen by an outer elder and welcomed into their ranks. This was initially a cause for jubilation, and upon informing Chen Lin, her family was equally delighted, promising that once he completed his training, the two families would unite in marriage. However, after merely 3 years of training, Yusheng returned to find everything had changed. His home was gone, his parents vanished, and the Chen family had relocated entirely without leaving a trace. Desperately, he sought information and eventually learned that the year he departed, the region had been struck by a severe drought, leading to widespread famine. Faced with oppressive taxes imposed by the dynasty, many townsfolk found survival impossible. The Chen family, in their desperation, resolved to escape the town to evade the taxes. Yet, fleeing with an entire family was no simple task, especially as they sought to carry sufficient provisions. Ultimately, after deliberation, the elders of the family decided to offer the relatively attractive Chen Lin to Feng Jitong, the stationed disciple of the Qingyun sect in Xianyong town, as a means of ensuring their family's escape. Feng Jitong, a disciple of the inner sect, was assigned a year of duty in the town. To him, the departure of a few villagers was inconsequential, and the opportunity presented by a beautiful woman was one he readily accepted, thus sealing their fates. The Chen family fled under the cover of night, leaving no one behind. Yusheng's parents, unable to escape, ultimately succumbed to starvation during the famine, perishing within the town. The news of their demise struck Yusheng like a bolt from the blue. Not only did he harbor resentment towards Chen Lin for remarrying and becoming another's concubine, but he also loathed the Chen family for fleeing without taking his parents along. Enraged, he sought out Qingyun sect to confront Feng Jitong. However, to Feng Jitong, Chen Lin was merely a plaything, unworthy of his concern. As a distinguished inner disciple of Qingyun sect, how could he bother himself with a mere mortal woman? Within half a year, he grew weary of her and abandoned her in a town, the fate of which remains unclear, whether she succumbed to starvation during a famine or languished in hiding. Upon hearing this, Yusheng was consumed with fury and immediately engaged Feng Jitong in battle. Yet, having only trained for 3 years, despite his considerable talent, he was no match for Feng Jitong. The scars etched upon his face, his blinded eyes, and the severed hand were all marks of Feng Jitong's cruelty. Yusheng, humiliated by his defeat, barely survived and stumbled upon a cave that seemed to have been a refuge for other cultivators. Within it lay remnants of elixirs and techniques. Thus, he began to heal his wounds and cultivate the art of beast control. Once restored, his pent-up hatred sought an outlet, and he learned that the current Qin family estate was comprised of those who had fled the town. Consequently, he plotted his revenge. With his strength, he could have annihilated the entire Qin family estate in one fell swoop. Yet he chose a more insidious approach. He commanded beasts to kill only a few at a time, striking fear into the hearts of the entire Qin family, slowly torturing them to death. After listening to Yusheng's rambling recount, Shun Lian could not help but shake his head, deeply moved. Ultimately, this matter could not be reduced to a simple dichotomy of right and wrong. If blame were to be assigned, it would rest on Yusheng's weakness, as the Chen family was also a marginalized party. In this world, the weak have never been afforded the luxury of human rights. It appeared that the one in a position of power was Feng Jitong, the inner disciple. Yet, when faced with Shun Lian, what did Feng Jitong amount to? Today, I believe several more from the Chun family have perished, huh? I shall eventually eradicate them all, ensuring they live in perpetual fear. Indeed, one day I shall storm Qingyun's sect, leaving no one alive. Yu Sheng, in a fit of fervor, suddenly erupted into maniacal laughter. Shun Lian shook his head. Perceiving that Yu Sheng's subsequently, his body trembled and collapsed, succumbing to death. Were their souls intertwined with the demise of his master? The beast met its end in loyalty. A glimmer of insight flickered in Shun Lian's eyes as he murmured softly. His gaze then shifted, discovering a portion of a storage bag protruding from Yu Sheng's chest. Chapter 21. The appearance of the yellow bird. The terrifying Foundation establishment. Shun Lian, undeterred, approached to retrieve the storage bag and opened it for inspection. Inside, the contents were sparse. Apart from a few mundane living necessities, there lay merely 4 martial arts manuals. Not a single spirit stone or medicinal pill remained, likely depleted by Yu Sheng over the years. Fortunately for Shun Lian, the value of martial arts techniques was on par with that of spirit stones and treasures, making this discovery quite rewarding. Among the 4 manuals, there were 2 sets of fist techniques and 1 set of leg techniques, all categorized as low-grade yellow. The remaining manual was a beast taming technique, a unique category devoid of a level classification. After spending over 2 hours, Shun Lian perused all 4 martial arts manuals, completing his studies and accruing 400 skill points. Subsequently, he expended 32 skill points to elevate the newly acquired techniques to perfection. The beast taming technique was similarly enhanced to a flawless state. According to the technique's description, upon reaching perfection, the beast taming technique would enable him to forcibly tame a beast with a strength 3 minor levels below his own. Once nurtured, the beast's power could not surpass 1 major realm above his own. Otherwise, it would be unable to advance. This ability seemed somewhat superfluous to Shun Lian, as he could rapidly level up through the system, unlike the beasts. Thus, he did not intend to venture into the Shadow Forest to seek out beasts for taming, thinking that if opportunities arose in the future, he would casually acquire one without wasting time. If none were found, it mattered little. With over 300 skill points remaining, Shun Lian habitually allocated them to the embryonic form of his sword intent. As usual, he felt his comprehension of sword intent deepening, yet his attributes remained unchanged. Unperturbed, he stored the 4 martial arts manuals and retraced his steps, exiting the underground passage. However, as soon as he stepped onto the surface, he suddenly sensed a formidable aura locking onto him. Following the sensation, he gazed ahead to see a yellow figure calmly hovering in midair, its cold gaze fixed upon him. Soaring through the air, this was the Foundation establishment stage. A chill ran through Shun Lian's heart, and a grave expression crossed his face. The Foundation establishment, as its name suggests, signifies the critical importance of this phase. It marks the true commencement of the cultivation journey, where one distinguishes between the mortal and the immortal, completely breaking free from the shackles of the mundane world. In the Foundation establishment stage, the transformation of spiritual energy occurs, amplifying its potency manifold. Flying with the sword and traversing the air are the most apparent markers of this stage. In contrast, while the Body Refinement and Chi Refinement stages allow for skilled practitioners to engage in battles beyond their levels through technique, every minor stage of combat from the Foundation establishment onwards becomes exceedingly arduous. Each leap across these minor stages symbolizes a monumental shift in strength. Defeating a Foundation establishment practitioner as a Chi Refinement stage cultivator, especially in a major stage, is a rarity that has never been witnessed. The 2 stages bear no comparability. It was as if in a past life, a child of 7 or 8, wielding a toy water gun, attempted to confront a fully armed Special Forces soldier. The futility of such an endeavor was evident. Shun Lian remained vigilant, keenly observing his opponent, who clearly bore ill intent. Otherwise, why would he be immediately targeted upon his emergence? The sense of urgency was akin to a thorn in his back, exceedingly uncomfortable. You've managed to linger for so long, even while dealing with a deluded fool. I must admit, I underestimated you, the figure draped in yellow remarked softly. Oh, have you been waiting for your disciple here all along? Shun Lian inquired, his heart stirred by the words. Humph. There's no need for you to attempt any form of probing. Let me make it clear. I've been following you since the moment you departed from the sect. The other replied bluntly. A chill ran through Shun Lian as he instantly deduced much from this statement. The fact that he had been tracked was evident. Given the opponent's prowess, it was understandable that he had gone unnoticed. But how had he managed to keep pace? Was it a mere coincidence? Or had he received information from the mission dispatch? Indeed, only there would someone know precisely when he left the sect and for what purpose. This implied that the individual had maintained a network of spies, closely monitoring his movements. Within the sect, Shun Lian had few enemies. But those willing to expend effort to observe him were becoming increasingly clear. Upon further examination, Shun Lian noted a small emblem embroidered on the figure's collar. "So, you are a master from the Wang family," he remarked calmly. Having spent considerable time at Xinyan's sect, his experiences had vastly expanded his horizons, and he had learned much about the Wang family through inquiries. The emblem on the collar was the family crest of the Wang clan. The Wang family had deep roots within Xinyan's sect, boasting numerous adept practitioners. The known patriarch of the Wang family was the third elder of the inner sect, possessing the formidable strength of the 7th level of Golden Core. "Ah, it seems you possess some discernment. You appear to be quite intelligent." The other acknowledged with a hearty nod, directly conceding. He continued, "Since you are indeed clever, I shall dispense with the pleasantries. I am Wang Hongda, the 9th descendant among the 3rd generation of the Wang family. You may refer to me as Wang Jiao. I have come specifically to inquire about the disappearance of my clan brother Wang Yanglai and my nephew Wang Hui. I advise you to recognize the gravity of the situation. Do not utter frivolous remarks about their disappearance being unrelated to you or that you are uninformed. Since I have come to you, it is because I possess concrete evidence. Otherwise, I would not trouble you unnecessarily. You would do well to disclose the whereabouts of Wang Yanglai and his son, or the location of their remains. Do not wait for me to take matters into my own hands. The sensation of suffering worse than death is not one to be taken lightly." As the last words fell, Wang Hongda's imposing aura surged, descending upon Shun Lian like a mountain, rendering him momentarily immobilized. Shun Lian felt as though his body were weighed down by 1,000 pounds, even his breath turning labored. This pressure was not a physical assault, but rather a mental onslaught. Having reached the foundation establishment stage, he had begun to grasp the basics of spiritual awareness, allowing him to wield a rudimentary control over such imposing energy. With an indomitable spirit, Shun Lian managed to withstand the oppressive force of divine consciousness. Though his complexion turned pale, after a moment of contemplation, he suddenly shook his head and sighed, as if relinquishing certain convictions. He looked up at Wang Hongda, his gaze earnest as he spoke. "Alas, I, too, feared attracting trouble, which is why I concealed this information. Since you, Lord Jiao, are already aware, I shall disclose everything." "They are right at." Wang Hongda listened intently, yet as Shun Lian began to speak, he abruptly turned and dashed towards the cave behind him. "Humph, overestimating yourself." Wang Hongda scoffed. Observing Shun Lian's movement, a hint of disdain flickered in his eyes. He merely raised his hand, striking the air with a casual gesture. Bang! Shun Lian had pushed his speed to the limit, but the short distance of merely a few meters proved his undoing. As he reached the cave's entrance, he suddenly felt an overwhelming force descend upon him. With a resounding roar, the ground trembled, dust and debris swirling into the air. The cave entrance was obliterated, transformed into a massive pit, the soil collapsing and sealing it completely, leaving no trace of an opening. Chapter 22. The Emergence of Sword Intent. "The little sparrows misstep, little one, engaging in schemes with me. You are still too inexperienced," Wang Hongda proclaimed with arrogance. Shun Lian halted in place, gazing at the now perfectly sealed cave. A sense of helplessness welled within him. After a brief moment of hesitation, he swiftly turned and fled in the opposite direction. Initially, he had intended to escape into the cave, as the underground passages were extensive, providing him a slim chance against the foundational level Wang Hongda. After all, no matter how powerful a foundational level expert may be, they would struggle to unleash their full potential in confined spaces. Alas, his plans evaporated before they could be set into motion. Wang Hongda had tracked him to this point, choosing not to enter the cave but to monitor with his divine consciousness, anticipating this very tactic. With such preparation, how could Shun Lian possibly succeed? A foundational level expert's reflexes are astoundingly quick. Even if engrossed in thought, they can react the moment Shun Lian made his attempt to flee. A cold smirk danced on Wang Hongda's lips as he made no overt movements. Instead, a flying sword materialized in the air, descending to his feet. Swish! The sound of slicing through the air echoed as Wang Hongda's sword on his sword, his speed far surpassing Shun Lian's. In an instant, he positioned himself before Shun Lian, then halted, a mocking glint in his eyes. "Come now, keep running, little cub. Let us see how far you can go." Shun Lian paused, his heart sinking at the sight of Wang Hongda hovering effortlessly in the air. It was futile to attempt escape. His opponent possessed a means of transportation, while he was left with only his legs, which could never outpace the other. With escape rendered impossible, only one path remained. To await his demise was not an option. Whether in his past life or the present, Shun Lian was not one to be easily slaughtered. With a swift motion, his sword was drawn. He thrust his right foot firmly against the ground, leaving a trail of afterimages as he leaped forward, aiming his strike at Wang Hongda. Oh, this movement technique possesses some merit, not of the Qingyun sect's teachings. Wang Hongda stood gracefully in midair, arms crossed, observing with an air of indifference. completely unfazed by Shun Lian's assault. Shun Lian's movements appeared flamboyant, filled with countless illusions, but against a foundation-building practitioner with spiritual awareness, they proved utterly ineffective. Wang Hongda extended his consciousness, instantly locking onto Shun Lian's true form. Just as Shun Lian leaped closer, Wang Hongda nonchalantly formed a sword gesture. Whoosh! A spiritual sword traced an arc through the void, suddenly shooting forth from beneath him, launching a direct attack aimed at Shun Lian's neck. Shun Lian's pupils constricted as he realized that, given the speed of the opponent's sword strike, he would likely be struck before he could reach Wang Hongda. With the ability to fly and perform long-range sword techniques, Shun Lian gritted his teeth in frustration, compelled to twist his body mid-air, unleashing his spiritual energy to force a change in direction for his descent. However, having successfully landed a blow, Wang Hongda would not let him off easily. The spiritual sword followed closely behind. With no other option, Shun Lian pivoted sharply upon landing, his longsword dancing swiftly to produce a flurry of sword blossoms. The break sword technique, accompanied by a low growl. A series of crisp sounds reminiscent of pearls falling on a jade plate echoed through the air as Shun Lian unleashed a flurry of over a dozen strikes. In the next moment, he felt his right hand lighten. Upon retracting, the long sword had shattered into several segments, with only the hilt remaining in his grasp. Ah! Such exquisite swordsmanship. A flicker of astonishment finally crossed Wang Hongda's expression. To think that a mere mortal sword technique could thwart his spiritual sword attack. Though the spiritual sword, sharp and unparalleled, had severed Shun Lian's weapon, it too was involuntarily repelled. What an opportunity! Shun Lian's eyes brightened at the sight, and without a moment's hesitation, he pushed off the ground with renewed vigor, leaping towards Wang Hongda once more. Humph! Seeking death, Wang Hongda seemed to have been provoked by Shun Lian's repeated disturbances. To him, Shun Lian was merely a minor practitioner of Qi refinement, easily dealt with, yet he had not anticipated Shun Lian's persistent resistance. From fleeing at the outset to now having countered his sword technique, it was a profound humiliation. With a single hand forming a gesture, he redirected the descending spiritual sword, which now surged towards Shun Lian from behind like lightning, aimed directly at his back. Shun Lian sensed the sharp aura approaching, yet he did not flinch or evade. His gaze remained steadfastly fixed on Wang Hongda. In that moment, there was only the adversary before him. As they closed in rapidly, with only 3 meters separating them, Shun Lian suddenly clenched his right hand, having long since discarded the broken sword hilt. Yet, at that instant, a beautifully glowing spiritual sword, shimmering with a ghostly blue light, appeared in his palm. The blue jade sword, a mid-grade spiritual artifact. Shun Lian began to fervently channel his spiritual energy into it, then swung the sword downward towards Wang Hongda. In that fleeting moment, he instinctively infused all the sword intent he had comprehended into the strike. Sizzle, clang, a resonant tremor, and the sharp clash of metal rang out simultaneously. Shun Lian's body jolted, and then he suddenly opened his mouth, spewing forth a copious amount of blood. The entire body fell uncontrollably to the ground. Remarkably, it did not pierce through. Goodness, does he possess protective armor made from spiritual artifacts? And a spiritual sword as well. Youngster, you have quite a collection of valuable items, yet your strength is woefully inadequate. Even if you infused all your energy into the sword, its brilliance would never reach me. Why engage in such futile efforts? Wang Hongda sneered, his figure shifting as he prepared to descend. However, the moment he lifted his foot, his entire body abruptly froze in place. His eyes widened in disbelief, filled with incredulity. How could this be? When did you? He looked at Shun Lian in shock, and in the next instant, bang! His body was instantaneously cleaved in two, from the center of his head down to his abdomen. He was sliced with astonishing smoothness. Blood cascaded like a torrential rain, and the two halves of his corpse, mingled with a plethora of internal organs, tumbled to the ground, utterly devoid of life. Clang! The spiritual sword, now devoid of its master-esque control, plummeted from the air, producing a crisp sound upon impact. Cough, cough. That was indeed perilous. Shun Lian cleared his throat, propping himself up to stand. At that fleeting moment, it appeared as though the sword's radiance had not touched Wang Hongda. Yet driven by the nascent sword intent, it sliced through the very fabric of reality ahead. Thus, Wang Hongda, positioned before it, was inevitably severed by the sword's essence with ease. Unfortunately, he was merely at the foundation establishment stage, completely oblivious to the presence of the sword intent, unaware of the sheer terror of such an assault. Even after being struck, he remained standing, arrogantly boasting until he attempted to descend. Only then did his injuries erupt, leading to his immediate demise. A child wielding a toy gun cannot possibly defeat a special forces soldier. However, if caught off guard, when that toy gun fires a real bullet, even the soldier could fall. It is unsurprising that Wang Hongda, due to ignorance and complacency, met his end at Shun Lian's hands. This underscores the significance of hidden trump cards. Wiping the remnants of blood from the corner of his mouth, Shun Lian approached and searched the corpse for a moment, retrieving Wang Hongda's storage pouch. He then moved aside to collect the spiritual sword. Chapter 23, Liao New City. Spiritual Treasure Workshop. The act of slaying his opponent with a single sword strike may have seemed effortless, yet Shun Lian knew that his victory was far from easy. Any hint of hesitation in his actions could have altered the outcome dramatically, particularly during the final moments. Where he risked himself to unleash that decisive blow against Wang Hongda's attack, he felt a chill of anxiety. Fortunately, the armor produced by the system proved effective, shielding his body and causing only a minor injury that resulted in a spurt of blood with no other significant harm. He casually retrieved a healing pill and swallowed it. Feeling the medicinal energy disperse within his abdomen and swiftly mend his wounds, Shun Lian chose not to dwell on it further. He looked down at the spiritual sword in his hand. Wang Hongda's sword was merely a low-grade spiritual artifact, lacking any extraordinary qualities, and paled in comparison to the blue jade sword he possessed. The blue jade sword, acquired through the system's lottery, was rated as a mid-grade spiritual artifact, yet it undoubtedly belonged to the finest tier within that classification. In terms of power, it was only slightly inferior to high-grade spiritual artifacts. Thus, with the example of the azure jade sword before him, Shun Lian held no regard for this flying sword, merely glancing at it before putting it away. Upon opening Wang Hongda's storage bag and observing the treasures within, Shun Lian could not help but reveal a broad grin. For the wealth contained therein was indeed befitting a foundation-building expert. To speak of its riches, there were over 300 spirit stones, alongside a dozen mid-grade spirit stones. Based on the exchange ratio of 1 to 10, the total value approached 500 low-grade spirit stones. Additionally, a considerable quantity of elixirs, miscellaneous items, and mundane gold and silver amounting to tens of thousands of taels were present. The only lamentable aspect was the absence of any martial techniques or cultivation methods, as the Qingyun sect maintained stringent regulations regarding such practices, allowing only for observation in the scripture pavilion without the possibility of removal. After thoroughly inspecting the contents, Shun Lian wasted no time and collected everything, placing all items into his own storage bag. He then skillfully gathered Wang Hongda's corpse and set it ablaze. Once the destruction of the body and obliteration of evidence was complete, and having ensured nothing was overlooked, Shun Lian pondered briefly before abruptly turning away. Not returning to the sect, but rather hastening towards Liao Xinqing. The appearance of Wang Hongda had rekindled Shun Lian's fervent desire to strengthen his abilities. If he had once reveled in his rapid ascension to power, considering himself a formidable expert, Wang Hongda's emergence shattered all such illusions, making him acutely aware of the chasm that existed between the mortal and the immortal. This was merely the foundation-building stage. What would he encounter when faced with a formidable Golden Core practitioner, or even more terrifying beings beyond the Golden Core level? Never had he felt such an urgent need to seek a breakthrough. Setting aside everything else, even merely advancing to the foundation-building stage to acquire divine consciousness would have prevented today's experience of being tracked without awareness. He must hasten to enhance his strength. The Qi refinement stage was still too weak. Shun Lian whispered to himself, propelling his speed to its utmost. The Lingbo Weibu technique unfolded, and a series of phantoms flitted across the ground like specters. 2 hours later, a towering city loomed before him. A long queue formed at the city gates. Shun Lian slowed his pace and halted by the entrance. The gate guard, upon seeing Shun Lian's distinctive long robe, hurried over, respectfully inquiring, "Might I ask if you are a celestial of the Qingyun sect?" Shun Lian nodded indifferently, producing a token and tossing it to the guard. The soldier examined it briefly, his demeanor growing increasingly respectful as he bent down, returning the token with both hands, and proclaimed loudly, "Celestial, please follow me." "Very well," Shun Lian replied with a nod. The soldier guided him directly through the crowd to the front, entering the city without any hindrance. The Qingyun sect stood as the unequivocal sovereign of the southern region of Yan Kingdom, naturally enjoying numerous privileges. While such advantages might not be apparent in smaller locales, they became evident in larger mundane towns. For instance, as long as one could prove their affiliation with the Qingyun sect, entry into the town required no queuing and incurred no fees. The hundreds of commoners waiting in line behind him displayed neither discontent nor resentment, their eyes reflecting a deep sense of reverence and envy. Upon entering the city, Shun Lian casually dispatched the soldiers and leisurely strolled through the bustling crowd. Liao Xinqing, the largest city under the jurisdiction of Panyang Prefecture, was abuzz with activity. The streets were teeming with pedestrians, and numerous vendors vociferously peddled their wares along the roadside. Most of these individuals were ordinary folk without any cultivation, though occasionally a practitioner would join the fray, selling various materials. Typically, those who set up stalls here were disciples of minor sects or simply loose cultivators. Some knowledgeable practitioners recognized Shun Lian's attire and nodded in acknowledgement, greeting him with warm smiles, signifying goodwill. Shun Lian reciprocated their gestures with humility. He cast a casual glance at the items being sold by the cultivators. However, they were mostly trifles that did not pique his interest. After inquiring, he learned that by following the main street towards the city center, there was a place known as Lingbeifang, the largest commercial establishment in Liaoxinqing. Lingbeifang had a somewhat legendary origin, having been established by a group of loose cultivators who united in mutual support and effort to create a shop dedicated to serving fellow practitioners. Over time, it expanded significantly, with its business reaching throughout the entire Yin kingdom. Every major city in Yin boasted a branch of Lingbeifang, and there were even rumors suggesting that its commerce had extended to other mundane nations, establishing a vast influence. Upon hearing this news, Shun Lian instinctively quickened his pace. His purpose for visiting Liaoxinqing was to acquire foundational cultivation techniques, which were virtually unavailable in smaller locales. With Lingbeifang present, he anticipated that it would possess all he required. As he proceeded along the main street, after a brief interval, a sprawling commercial building came into view. The imposing signboard prominently displayed the 3 characters for Lingbeifang. Confirming the location, Shun Lian entered without hesitation. Upon stepping inside, he was greeted by a strikingly beautiful young woman in her 20s. Upon seeing Shun Lian's attire, she exhibited a respectful demeanor and said, "Greetings, esteemed senior. I am Linger, here to attend to your needs. How may I assist you?" Shun Lian regarded her, unable to suppress a hint of surprise, not solely due to her enchanting appearance, but rather the faint aura she emanated. Although it was subtle, it indicated that she possessed a cultivation level at the Chi refinement stage. The mere fact that such a being was assigned to serve as a receptionist revealed the formidable foundation of Lingbeifang. "Greetings, Linger," he replied, nodding. After a moment of contemplation, he stated, "I wish to purchase a foundational cultivation technique and a foundational elixir. Do you have any in stock?" Lingbeifang has foundational techniques available for immediate retrieval, but the foundational elixirs are quite precious and are not sold retail. They can only be acquired at auction, Linger responded almost without hesitation. Upon hearing this, Shun Lian's brows furrowed. He was acutely aware of his own poor innate talent. Even transitioning to the Chi refinement stage required the aid of Xianling pills, let alone achieving foundational cultivation. Without the foundational elixir, he had no hope and could confidently assert that he would be unable to complete the foundational stage. Chapter 24. Urgent Summons. Return to the sect. Initially, I had anticipated that upon arriving in the Grand City, I would effortlessly procure the 2 items I sought. However, to my dismay, I discovered that the Foundation Establishment pill was not available for retail. Esteemed senior, the Foundation Establishment pill has attained the status of a rare elixir. Not only in Liaoxing City, but even in other major cities, including the capital of the Yin Kingdom, there are no shops that offer it for sale, Linger explained softly, noticing Shun Lian's frustration. However, our Lingbao workshop will host an auction in approximately 10 days, during which 5 Foundation Establishment pills will be available. If you have the time, you may wait here until the auction commences to make your purchase. Upon hearing this, Shun Lian could only nod resignedly. In that case, I shall first acquire a Foundation Establishment technique, and I also have several items I wish to sell. Could you assist me in appraising them? As he spoke, Shun Lian retrieved a stack of martial techniques, all of which were low-tier methods he had obtained during his travels. Along with the flying sword he had just acquired from Wang Hongda, he presented them to Linger. "Very well, esteemed senior. Please rest for a moment. I shall return shortly." Linger replied respectfully, taking the flying sword and martial techniques before leading Shun Lian to a quiet chamber, where she served him tea before hastily exiting. Shun Lian sipped his tea, feeling rather listless as he sat in the chair. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a burly man with a thick beard, appearing travel-worn, was ushered in by the other attendants. He took a seat opposite Shun Lian. The two were strangers and had no intention of engaging in conversation. However, once the attendants departed, the bearded man twisted his body and removed his leather boots. Instantly, a cloud of white mist emanated from his feet, and a wave of heat surged forth. The entire quiet chamber was engulfed in a foul odor that defied description. With a splutter, Shun Lian expelled the tea he had just sipped, his eyes wide in shock as he stared at the bearded man. "Good heavens, brother. Could you please put your shoes back on?" Shun Lian shouted, pinching his nose. He had never expected to encounter such a peculiar individual in the fantastical realm of cultivators. The stench was comparable to that of a biochemical weapon. "Ah, we all have our struggles when venturing outside, brother. I apologize, please bear with me for a moment. I truly cannot tolerate this." The bearded man replied with surprising politeness, yet showed no intention of putting his shoes back on. Shun Lian, feeling helpless, cast a glance at his companion. He decided that it was not worth causing a scene over such a trivial matter and instead focused on circulating his energy, converting his external breathing to internal breathing, which alleviated his discomfort considerably. The bearded man shifted his position, propping his legs up lazily and reclining in his chair with a contented expression. He glanced at Shun Lian's attire, particularly noting the embroidered number 7 on the cuffs. His brow arched slightly as he scrutinized Shun Lian, a faint smile gracing his lips. Unaware of the scrutiny, Shun Lian remained seated, eyes closed in meditation. Shortly thereafter, Linger returned. As she opened the door and stepped inside, she gasped in surprise, her body instinctively retreating several paces until she managed to stabilize herself. Her face flushed with embarrassment as she glanced into the quiet chamber. Upon noticing the bearded man, she could not help but reveal a look of exasperation. With a pained furrow of her brow, she steeled herself, as if embracing death, and charged in. Ahem, senior, the items you requested have arrived. Linger's smile appeared somewhat contorted, lending her an odd demeanor. It was understandable. She had merely just begun her journey into qi cultivation, unlike Shun Lian, who possessed profound expertise and could manipulate internal breathing. The girl was clearly straining to maintain her composure in that moment. Shun Lian casually glanced at the items he received, only to find that, aside from the foundational cultivation technique, the beast taming manual had been returned as well, with no spiritual stones exchanged. Before Shun Lian could inquire further, Linger preemptively began her explanation. Senior, that flying sword has a market value of 200 low-grade spiritual stones, while the other martial arts techniques are of lesser worth, totaling 35 low-grade spiritual stones. After deducting the price of the foundational technique, you are left with 160 low-grade spiritual stones. Furthermore, due to its unique classification, I do not recommend selling the beast taming manual outright. It might fetch an unexpected price at an auction. Oh, I see. That sounds reasonable. Shun Lian nodded appreciatively. Thank you, Linger. No problem at all, senior. When you next visit Lingbao Pavilion, feel free to seek me out again, Linger replied with a smile. Shun Lian inclined his head, reluctant to witness the young girl's discomfort, swiftly gathered his belongings, and made his way outside. Only then did Linger exhale in relief, trailing closely behind him until they had distanced themselves several meters from the quiet room, whereupon she dared to take deep breaths. Amused, Shun Lian bid her farewell and departed Lingbao Pavilion, seeking refuge in a nearby tavern. He intended to wait for the auction to commence before purchasing the foundational elixir. In his guest room, Shun Lian assessed his current finances. Excluding mundane gold and silver, he possessed 637 low-grade spiritual stones, along with 18 medium-grade spiritual stones. He had acquired a foundational technique, which he could sell after studying it, as well as the beast taming manual, which was difficult to appraise due to its distinctive nature. With such substantial funds, purchasing a foundational elixir would certainly be more than sufficient. He pondered whether he should convert the remaining money into lower-tier martial techniques. After contemplating for a while, he formulated a rough idea. There was no need to rush, so after a moment's reflection, he retrieved the foundational technique and began to study it diligently. Despite lacking confidence in his innate abilities, having obtained the technique, it felt unjust not to at least try. Shun Lian devoted nearly 2 hours to meticulous reading, committing the entire manual to memory. He then attempted to follow the outlined steps to initiate foundation establishment. As time passed, after a night had elapsed, Shun Lian opened his eyes and sighed in resignation. Indeed, a lack of talent proved to be an insurmountable obstacle. After toiling throughout the night, he had not only failed to achieve successful foundation establishment, but could not even complete the first step. With a sigh, he rose and casually had breakfast downstairs. Initially, Shun Lian had planned to remain there until the auction at Lingbao Pavilion commenced to purchase the foundational elixir. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. 3 days later, he unexpectedly received a message from his master, Duan Mingji, urgently summoning him back to the sect. With just a week remaining until the auction, being called back to the sect at such a critical juncture left Shun Lian profoundly unwilling. Yet, he had no choice. He intended to continue his endeavors within the Qingyun sect. Master Duan Mingji serves as his greatest support at present, and it seems that the master wishes for him to return to the sect for a favorable opportunity. With no other choice, Shun Lian reluctantly acquiesced. On the day of his departure from Liaoxin City, he traveled swiftly and, after half a day's journey, arrived at the tranquil chamber of Elder 7 as dusk approached. He paid his respects to his master, uncertain as to the urgency behind the summons. With a smile, Elder 7 remarked, "Ah, not bad. It seems you have made some progress in just a few days." He stroked his long beard, pleased with Shun Lian's advancement to the 3rd level of qi refinement. The elder felt a sense of great satisfaction, gradually affirming Shun Lian's reputation as an extraordinary talent, which was precisely the outcome Shun Lian sought. Thanks to your guidance, Master, I have been able to improve so swiftly, Shun Lian expressed, ever mindful to show his appreciation. Elder 7, clearly enjoying the flattery, waved his hand dismissively and said, "Enough of the compliments. The reason I hastily called you back is to share some good news." "What good news?" Shun Lian inquired with curiosity. "The secret realm has opened ahead of schedule," Elder 7 replied softly. "The secret realm?" Shun Lian's expression was one of confusion. He had heard Elder 7 mention the term before, but at that time, the elder had not elaborated. Thus, he had assumed it bore little significance to him, never anticipating that the master would summon him specifically for this matter. Noticing Shun Lian's bewilderment, Elder 7 proceeded to elaborate. "The secret realm is essentially a blessed land, a domain established by a powerful ancient sect as their stronghold. The conditions for creating such a realm are exceedingly stringent. It requires not only formidable practitioners to oversee it, but also an abundance of rare materials to have any chance of establishment. Even the Qingyun sect could not fulfill such requirements. Centuries ago, the founder of the Qingyun sect stumbled upon this blessed land, yet despite the sect's full efforts, they could not claim it. They ultimately sought the assistance of a nearby major sect, the Thunder Valley, and only through collaboration were they able to gain entry. Upon exploration, it became evident that this blessed land had suffered significant damage, having been ravaged by a great conflict that led to the downfall of the ancient sect that once inhabited it. From the remnants of the ruins, the founder of the Qingyun sect discerned the term Lingyuan and thus named it the Lingyuan Secret Realm. Subsequently, the Qingyun sect and Thunder Valley collaborated to explore it further, unearthing a plethora of treasures and many rare materials. It was through this that both sects truly rose to prominence. Over the centuries, the two sects have tirelessly explored the realm, turning it inside out, and only a few less valuable treasures remain, which they have chosen to preserve. After deliberation, the two sects decided to designate this place as a training ground, opening it once every decade for disciples below the foundation establishment stage to enter for experience. Through years of exploration, both sects have mastered the methods and patterns for opening the secret realm, effectively co-managing this extraordinary site. Within the confines of the secret realm, the items may be deemed inconsequential by the sect, yet in the hands of an individual disciple, each one transforms into a treasure of great value. Thus, every time the secret realm is unsealed, the opportunity to enter is fiercely contested. Elder Qi exerted considerable effort to secure this chance for Shun Lian. "Tomorrow, you shall gather at the inner gate square, where an elder in charge will escort you to the entrance of the secret realm," Elder Qi elucidated. "Yes, Master," Shun Lian replied, deeply touched. Elder Qi paused momentarily before imparting further counsel. "The sect mandates that disciples entering the secret realm must possess a minimum cultivation level of the 7th layer of Qi refinement. I have witnessed your swordsmanship and recognize that your strength transcends mere assessment by cultivation levels. Hence, I endeavored to secure this opportunity for you. However, you must remain vigilant. Although we have thoroughly scoured the secret realm and eliminated many dangers, there may still be hidden perils yet undiscovered. Furthermore, Elder San's disciple, Lu Yi, will also venture into the secret realm. Given the events of the last encounter, he may seek to cause you trouble. Nonetheless, there is no need for undue concern. Your senior brothers have returned, and you are not alone in this endeavor. Simply find a way to quickly unite with them. Lastly, exercise caution with the disciples from Thunder Valley." Oh, upon hearing this, Shun Lian was momentarily taken aback. His curiosity regarding his senior brothers was swiftly eclipsed by this revelation. "Will Thunder Valley be seeking to trouble us?" he inquired. "It's far more than mere harassment," Elder Qi responded, his demeanor turning unexpectedly grave. "Years ago, Thunder Valley's strength was beneath that of Qingyun's sect, and for many years, we have maintained dominance over them. However, in recent years, they have inexplicably experienced a remarkable surge in internal strength, approaching parity with us. This information is known only to the upper echelons of the sect. The outside world remains unaware and still perceives Thunder Valley as subordinate to us. In truth, we have already encountered several minor skirmishes with them in recent years, and it is likely that a significant conflict between our two sects looms on the horizon." "Is that so?" Shun Lian was astonished by Elder Qi's revelations. "If I encounter disciples from Thunder Valley who provoke me inside, should I retaliate? Do not hold back," Elder Qi commanded, his expression fierce. "Understood, Master," Shun Lian affirmed earnestly. "Go, prepare yourself early. Ensure you do not miss the appointed time tomorrow." Elder Qi gestured dismissively. "Yes," Shun Lian nodded respectfully, bowed, and departed. The night passed without incident. The following morning, Shun Lian arrived early at the inner gate square for the assembly, only to find it already teeming with numerous inner disciples, most of whom seemed to be there merely for the spectacle. Navigating through the crowd, he soon spotted the designated assembly sign at the center, where a stern-faced inner elder sat upon a chair, flanked by a dozen true disciples standing silently behind him. Shun Lian approached to report in, presenting his disciple token to the elder. After the elder reviewed and confirmed, he nodded and said, "Please wait aside for a moment. We shall depart once everyone is gathered." "Understood," Shun Lian replied obediently, stepping aside to stand still. "Oh, who is that? He has just reached the 3rd level of Qi cultivation. Yet he qualifies to enter the secret realm?" Upon seeing Shun Lian standing with the others, a chorus of astonished voices arose among the inner disciples. "Humph, you don't even know him? How ignorant can you be? Indeed, that is Shun Lian, the foremost genius of the inner sect. Haven't you heard? Is he really Shun Lian? The one who just ascended and defeated a 5th-level Qi disciple with his 1st-level prowess? Who else could it be? Have you not noticed the number 7 embroidered on his attire? The lowest-ranking disciple under Elder 7 is none other than Shun Lian." The crowd murmured amongst themselves. Shun Lian listened quietly, feeling a myriad of emotions, although his expression remained tranquil. At that moment, the crowd parted as another group approached to report. "Heavens! He has arrived too. The top prodigy of the inner sect. Of course, that is Louis, who is said to have already reached the pinnacle of the 10th level of Qi cultivation. Such a significant event as the opening of the secret realm. How could he possibly miss it?" Hearing the discussions, Shun Lian instinctively glanced across. The young man leading the group bore a cold demeanor, exuding a formidable aura, clearly at the peak of the 10th level of Qi cultivation. Behind him, a group of individuals also bore the embroidered 3, clearly distinguished as the true disciples of Elder 3. However, Shun Lian did not recognize any of them. Not only them, but he had also not encountered the other true disciples who had already registered. It seemed that Elder 7 was correct. These individuals were indeed the elite among the true disciples of Qingyun's sect, rarely staying within the sect, as they mostly engaged in external training. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Louis had finished his registration and suddenly shifted his gaze, his icy eyes landing on Shun Lian. "You are Shun Lian? Is it you who defeated junior brother Chuizheng?" Louis queried in a flat tone. Shun Lian was momentarily taken aback, then smiled and replied, "Indeed, what of it? Did Chuizheng come crying to you?" "Humph, I advise you, young man, the secret realm is perilous. It is not a place for child's play. You would do well to be cautious," Louis said with a chilling expression. Shun Lian frowned, recognizing the underlying threat in his words, and was about to retort when suddenly, a deep voice resounded from below. "Damn it! Who are you to speak of danger in the secret realm? Who are you trying to intimidate?" The crowd turned their attention to the source of the shout. "Oh, it's Yun Xiong. Who else would dare to disrespect Louis like that? Yes, I have heard that Yun Xiong has also reached the 10th level of Qi cultivation. Although he may not be at the pinnacle, his primary focus is on body refinement. Indeed, I even heard that this formidable individual recently crushed a stone turtle renowned for its defensive capabilities with a single punch. Is that true? The stone turtle is also at the 10th level of Qi cultivation, particularly known for its terrifying defense. It is said that even sword strikes struggle to injure it. What purpose would there be in deceiving you? At present, rumors circulate within the inner circles, suggesting that Brother Yunxiong's physical prowess surpasses that of even the fiercest beasts." As Shun Lian listened to the discussions around him, he cast his gaze downward, where a group of individuals was making their way through the crowd. Upon recognizing the leader of this group, his astonishment was palpable, and his mouth fell open in surprise. Standing nearly 2 meters tall with a full beard, this imposing figure was none other than the bioweapon creator he had encountered not long ago. "Humph, a brute," Louis remarked, his brow furrowing and his expression darkening at the sight of Yunxiong, muttering a curse under his breath. "Fool, are you calling me a brute? Do you wish to step down and test your skills?" Yunxiong retorted, glaring with intensity. Louis's face paled with anger, yet after a moment's hesitation, he chose to remain silent. It was not that he feared Yunxiong. Both men were acutely aware of each other's abilities. In a genuine confrontation, it was unlikely that a victor would emerge swiftly, and currently, their foremost priority was to enter the secret realm. He was disinclined to provoke conflict at this juncture, knowing that the leading elder would not condone such behavior. As expected, when Yunxiong attempted to speak again, the elder in charge shot to his feet with an irate expression. "Silence! Hurry and register, or you will forfeit your qualification." "Ah, yes, yes," Yunxiong exclaimed, his demeanor shifting dramatically as he donned a sycophantic grin, bending slightly as he approached to present his token. The elder, seemingly already familiar with Yunxiong's character, ignored him with a frosty demeanor, merely waving him off after inspecting the token. Yunxiong, adopting a servile posture, quickly made his way to Shun Lian's side, straightening up only once he reached him. Smack! He playfully patted Shun Lian on the shoulder, grinning broadly. Little junior brother, we meet again. You. Shun Lian noticed that Yunxiong's sleeve was also embroidered with the character 7 and quickly came to a realization. You are my senior brother? Indeed. Hee, I am the eldest brother. Yunxiong replied, grinning foolishly as he playfully ruffled Shun Lian's hair. Shun Lian, rolling his eyes in exasperation, eventually asked, So, eldest brother, you didn't just pick your toes a moment ago, did you? Get lost. Why would I do that so early in the morning? Yunxiong responded, slightly embarrassed. It seems you two have met before? One of the two individuals following Yunxiong chimed in. Little junior brother, have you also experienced the formidable power of eldest brother's sweaty feet? Shen Lian looked up to see a young man and woman, both appearing to be around 20. The young man exuded an air of refinement, embodying the essence of a scholar, while the young woman was strikingly beautiful, her large eyes sparkling with youthful exuberance. In an instant, the four exchanged glances, each recognizing a sense of familiarity in the other's eyes, leading to an inevitable burst of laughter. Yunxiong, initially bashful, eventually joined in the lightheartedness. Though they were meeting for the first time, there was an absence of any unfamiliarity, as if they had known each other for ages. And they quickly grew comfortable in one another's presence. Allow me to formally introduce myself. I am Luo Junyuan, the second disciple under our master. The young man stated after their laughter subsided. I am Shan Qing, the third, the young woman added. Second senior brother, third senior sister, Yunxiong acknowledged with a grin. Shun Lian politely nodded and greeted the two individuals, subsequently stating, I must be the fourth in rank, am I not? No, you are the fifth. The fourth is Dong Yanyan, your senior sister. However, this girl is rather playful and has not returned this time. Luo Junyuan chuckled as he spoke. Oh, Shun Lian nodded, quietly committing the name to memory. At that moment, the group of brothers gathered together, engaging in lively conversation. Shun Lian noted that although the number of disciples under his master was exceedingly scarce, each one was undeniably an elite. The eldest senior brother, Yunxiong, was a force to be reckoned with, possessing a cultivation level of the 10th layer of qi refining, with a primary focus on body refinement. Even Lu Yi, renowned as the first prodigy of the inner sect, dared not challenge him excessively. Both the second senior brother and the third senior sister were also at the 9th layer of qi refining, and judging by their auras, they were on the verge of breaking through to the 10th layer. Finally, there was the yet unseen fourth senior sister, Dong Yanyan, who was said to have already reached the 8th layer of qi refining. Adding to this was Shun Lian, the hidden powerhouse among them, showcasing the formidable strength of Elder Seven's disciples. As the conversation flowed, more and more disciples arrived to register. The true disciples from other elders also assembled. Shun Lian observed discreetly, discovering that the gathering was roughly divided into 3 groups. One centered around Lu Yi, the largest in number, comprised of true disciples from Elder 2, Elder 4, and Elder 6. Next was the group of disciples under Elder 1, with the true disciples of Elders 8 and 9 surrounding them. Lastly was his own group, the true disciples under Elder 5, who mingled and exchanged pleasantries, displaying a familiarity with Yunxiong and the others. Noticing Shun Lian's quiet observation, Yunxiong approached him. Patting his shoulder, he whispered, Have you grasped the situation within the inner sect? Do not worry. Although we are few, we need not fear them. True friendship is not measured by numbers. I have driven away those who are fickle and spineless, unworthy of our company. Only those like Louis, who relish in collecting refuse, would welcome anyone. Shun Lian nodded slowly, beginning to understand. In truth, he found his disposition akin to Yunxiong's, eschewing the pursuit of meaningless friendships. All right, everyone prepare, we shall set forth shortly. While they were conversing, the leading elder suddenly clapped his hands and shouted. The crowd was momentarily startled, only to behold a colossal ship-like treasure gradually descending from the sky. Chapter 27. Entering the Secret Realm. Damaged spiritual artifact The Longsung, Chuan Yunzhou, a top-tier treasure, was a unique flying artifact. It was inscribed with countless restrictive formations, boasting not only remarkable speed, but also formidable defensive and offensive capabilities. It was classified as a strategic-grade asset. Due to its immense power, its price was exorbitantly high, far beyond the means of an individual to purchase. Even within the entire Qingyun sect, there existed but this one vessel. Other powerful practitioners, or those with substantial wealth, if disinclined towards sword flight and finding it excessively arduous, might opt for flying artifacts. However, those were typically smaller, accommodating only a few individuals and lacking the grandeur of the Longsung, Chuan Yunzhou. Within the cloud-piercing vessel, not only the pilot but also accommodations for at least 10,000 passengers are provided. With the opening of this secret realm, aside from the leading elder, all other disciples are at the foundation establishment stage or below, rendering them incapable of soaring through the skies on swords, given the considerable distance to traverse. The sect has decided to deploy this precious artifact for communal use. The leading elders signaled upwards, and several cloud ladders descended from the vessel. Everyone, please board swiftly, he instructed. The crowd promptly ascended the ladders, hastily entering the ship. Once all were gathered, the elders soared up with a whoosh and declared, "Let us set forth." With a tremendous tremor, the colossal cloud-piercing vessel propelled itself into the air, departing at an astonishing speed that belied its size, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. For many, including Shun Lian and his companions, this was their inaugural experience aboard such a magnificent ship, and they could not suppress their curiosity as they surveyed their surroundings. Numerous other disciples also excitedly explored the vessel, prompting the elder to offer only minimal admonishments before diverting his attention. Such a high-grade artifact was not easily damaged, and thus, there was little concern about the disciples' exploration. The journey lasted a full day and night before they finally reached their destination. Had they walked, it was uncertain how long it would have taken them. At this juncture, the novelty of the cloud-piercing vessel had worn off, and as the cloud ladders were lowered, everyone began to disembark. Upon reaching the ground, they took in their surroundings. Realizing they stood within a valley, the exact location was indeterminate. They were simply too far from Qingyun's sect to ascertain. This was presumably a protective measure employed by the sect regarding the secret realm's location. "Let us wait. Our counterparts have yet to arrive," the leading elders stated solemnly, observing the absence of others nearby. However, scarcely had he spoken when a streak of light rapidly approached from a distance, halting midair. It was a massive ship, slightly smaller than the cloud-piercing vessel but remarkably more exquisite in design, the flying artifact of Thunderous Valley. The ship steadied itself in the air, and soon the cloud ladder descended, allowing a group of individuals to swiftly alight, standing opposite the disciples of Qingyun's sect. "Ah, the Qingyun sect has arrived quite early," one of the Thunderous Valley disciples remarked loudly. What does early matter? We still have to wait for the Thunderous Valley disciples," another chimed in. "Late arrivals have plenty to say, yet they'll be the ones lagging behind in the secret realm. Let the treasures be collected by us first." A disciple from Qingyun's sect retorted defiantly. "Excuse me? Who are you calling grandfather?" Another Thunderous Valley disciple shot back. "Whoever responds is the one. Brother, lower your voice. It seems you've stepped on a dog's tail. Enough." Just as the opposing group was about to continue their banter, the leading elder abruptly bellowed, instantly silencing the commotion around them. The atmosphere grew still. The elder from Thunderous Valley, a stern-looking middle-aged man, cast a cold glance towards them before stepping forward. His voice calm yet authoritative. "Let us commence. Come forth." The leading elder of Qingyun's sect showed no desire for further discourse, stepping forward in unison with his counterpart, both forming hand seals as a surge of formidable spiritual energy began to swirl around them. Shun Lian quietly observed the situation before him. The relationship between Qingyun's sect and Laming Valley was even more dire than he had anticipated. The two parties had barely exchanged greetings before they began to hurl insults at one another, foreshadowing the turmoil that awaited them in the secret realm. His gaze shifted, and he noticed the two elders radiating a tremendous aura, reaching its zenith. Suddenly, a flash of golden light appeared between them. Now, both elders bellowed in unison, their spiritual energy surging forth as if it were boundless, converging towards the golden light. Soon, the radiance expanded, and an ancient pressure descended upon everyone, causing a collective shiver of trepidation. Simultaneously, a thunderous explosion erupted ahead. The golden light appeared to swell to its utmost limit before shattering violently, transforming into an illusory portal that manifested upon the ground. Within, there seemed to be a swirling vortex, dark as night, exuding an air of mystery and enigma. The portal was open, and everyone hurried inside, knowing they would emerge in due time. The two elders urged, "Go." Yun Xiong, having been prepared for some time, seized Shun Lian's arm and dashed towards the vortex. "Remember, the locator I gave you can pinpoint everyone's locations. Once inside, reunite as swiftly as possible," Yun Xiong instructed in a hushed tone before disappearing into the vortex. Shun Lian followed suit, albeit a moment later. It felt as though he had entered a void tunnel. As soon as he stepped inside, a formidable pressure enveloped him. Before he could fully comprehend it, the pressure abruptly vanished, and he was greeted with a bright flash, finding himself in a dense forest. "Is this the secret realm?" Shun Lian mused, glancing back to find no trace of the portal remaining. Apart from himself, he could see no other figures, indicating that everyone had been randomly assigned to different locations upon entry. Contemplating this, Shun Lian retrieved the locator given to him by Yun Xiong. After channeling his spiritual energy into it, 3 green dots appeared on the screen, while his own position was marked by a red dot. "These must be my senior brothers and sisters," he whispered, noticing 2 dots in the east and 1 to the north. After a moment's reflection, He chose not to rush towards them, but instead turned to survey his surroundings. The forest was lush and verdant, yet remnants of some structures could still be discerned. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, suddenly refracting a bright glimmer that caught Shun Lian's eye. What is that? He pondered, moving closer for a better look. From a distance, it resembled a disc, glimmering enticingly. Upon approach, he discovered it to be a copper mirror. This object appeared to be a low-grade spiritual artifact, albeit damaged. Shun Lian scrutinized it for a moment, muttering to himself. The mirror bore a long crack that traversed its surface, with the edges severely worn. The internal array inscribed within had been destroyed, despite being a low-grade artifact. It held little value now, likely only worth the cost of its materials. After fiddling with it for a while, Shun Lian was about to stow it in his storage bag when a loud, unabashed laugh suddenly echoed from behind him. Ha! I never expected our side to be so fortunate, stumbling upon a treasure right upon our arrival. Chapter 28. The sword strikes thunder, step by step. A lethal threat. Shun Lian turned to glance behind him, where a disciple from Thunder Valley, clad in a white robe, was laughing triumphantly. The opponent wore a proud expression. His gaze fixated on the broken copper mirror, completely disregarding Shun Lian, as if he were of no consequence. It was understandable, considering Shun Lian's outward display of strength was merely at the 3rd level of Qi refinement, while his adversary was a bona fide master at the 8th level. Kid, hand over the item and scram while I'm still in a good mood. I might spare your life, Fong Qing boisterously proclaimed. Fool, Shun Lian rolled his eyes, too disinterested to engage. With a flick of his wrist, he stowed the battered copper mirror into his storage pouch. Are you seeking death? Upon witnessing Shun Lian's action, Fong Qing's fury ignited, and with a swift motion, he drew his sword. Yet, at that very moment, Shun Lian's figure transformed into a mere illusion. Whoosh! A pale blue light flickered and vanished in an instant. Before Fong Qing could process what had transpired, Shun Lian had already positioned himself behind him, standing straight, his right hand gripping the shimmering blue jade sword. You! Fong Qing's eyes widened in shock as he attempted to turn towards Shun Lian. However, the moment he moved, the world around him spun violently, plunging him into darkness. Thud! The decapitated head tumbled to the ground, rolling far away, its eyes remaining wide open, unblinking in death. Blood gushed from the gaping wound at his neck, rapidly staining the earth crimson. Shun Lian maintained a calm demeanor, flipping his palm to return the unsullied blue jade sword to his body. He then turned and bent down, skillfully beginning the process of looting the corpse, resembling a soulless scavenging machine. Elder Seven had expressly instructed him to show no mercy against the disciples of Thunder Valley. Thus, Shun Lian adhered to his master's command without hesitation. Fong Qing's storage pouch contained a considerable amount of items, with over 100 low-grade spirit stones and various medicinal pills, all of which Shun Lian collected. After all, those who entered the secret realm for training were elite disciples from the 2 major sects, each possessing significant value. Even someone as foolish as Fong Qing had treasures far exceeding the worth of that broken copper mirror. Once the looting was complete, Shun Lian had no interest in disposing of the body. Since the slain was not a disciple of the Qingyun sect, he had no fear of being discovered. Poor Fong Qing was left to rot in the wilderness, while Shun Lian leisurely continued his search. After a thorough search of the area, certain there were no further valuables to be found, he turned eastward and proceeded. Shun Lian's pace was unhurried, his attention primarily focused on the ground, hoping to uncover any rare treasures that others may have overlooked. After walking for more than an hour without any new discoveries, he could not help but lament his misfortune. Buzzing at that moment, the sound of fluttering wings reached his ears. Shun Lian looked up to see a small bee hovering nearby. He glanced briefly and dismissed it, turning his attention back to the path ahead, but suddenly a chill ran down his spine as realization struck him. Something was amiss. How could a bee mysteriously appear in this desolate place? As soon as the thought emerged in his mind, a subtle sound of slicing air reached his ears. Shun Lian halted his steps instinctively, retreating slightly. In the next moment, a streak of dark light zipped past the spot where he had just stood. Curious, he turned his gaze and noticed a figure lurking behind a large tree several meters away. Upon being discovered, the individual ceased their concealment, stepping forward with a smirk. Oh, a swift reaction. No wonder you were chosen to enter the secret realm with merely the strength of the 3rd level of Qi refinement. The figure was a young man with an unusual appearance, clad in a white robe, clearly a disciple of Thunder Valley. With a scoff, he did not wait for Shun Lian to respond before swiftly forming hand seals. The sound of buzzing wings suddenly intensified. In midair, the previously normal-sized bee rapidly expanded, growing to the size of a fist in the blink of an eye, its black stinger glimmering menacingly. With a swift motion, the bee's stinger shot forth again. Shun Lian evaded the attack with ease, finally discerning that the dark light was indeed the transformed stinger of the bee. It appeared to be a unique breed, trained by the young man for ambush assaults. Were the disciples of Thunder Valley truly this foolish? After effortlessly dodging the attack, Shun Lian spoke in a calm tone. What did you say? The youth, taken aback, had little time to react as a phantom surged toward him with lightning speed. Instinctively, he attempted to retreat. However, the apparition was far too swift. As he lifted his foot, a ghostly blue light flashed before him. In an instant, he froze. The look of astonishment still etched on his face. The next moment, his neck was severed, blood gushing forth as his body remained upright, his head thudding to the ground. Following in the footsteps of Fang Qing. After a failed ambush, the first choice should be to flee. Do you understand? Shun Lian remarked coolly, though the young man could no longer hear his words. Reaching into the youth's robe, he retrieved a storage bag and released his grip, allowing the lifeless body to finally collapse. Behind him, the frantic buzzing of bee wings erupted as they charged furiously at Shun Lian, seemingly intent on avenging their master. Yet, bereft of the youth's control, the bees moved clumsily. Shun Lian, hardly glancing at them, countered with a swift stroke of his sword, cleaving the bee in two, silencing its vexing buzz. With the azure jade sword retracted, Shun Lian opened the storage bag, preparing to examine its contents when suddenly, a distant voice called out. Junior brother Tan Yao, is that you? What happened? The sound of rushing footsteps followed, mingled with the whooshing of air. More companions? Shun Lian's mind stirred. Rather than retreating, he decided to conceal himself, leaping onto the treetops to hide. Moments later, 3 figures rushed into the clearing. Junior brother? Upon seeing the corpse on the ground, the trio's expressions shifted dramatically. Who could have done this? Although Tan Yao's combat prowess may not be formidable, he is nonetheless a master of the 8th level of Qi refining. How could he have been slain so swiftly? Could it be that he encountered the few prodigies of the Qingyan sect? Humph, regardless of who it is, this grudge must be avenged. In such a short span of time, he cannot have fled far. Pursue him. The leading youth commanded with a low voice, and the 3 immediately sprang into action, quickly assessing the direction before dashing forth at full speed. Tan Yao, along with these 3, were true disciples under the same elder of the Thunderclap Valley, sharing a deep camaraderie. Their fortunes had been relatively favorable upon entering the secret realm as they swiftly regrouped. Initially, they had intended to lie in ambush and execute a covert assassination while the main force had yet to assemble, hoping to seize a bounty of spirit stones and treasures. The 4 had stationed themselves in designated areas, not far apart, ensuring they could come to each other's aid at a moment's notice. However, to their misfortune, Tan Yao had crossed paths with Shun Lian, underestimating Shun Lian, who was merely at the 3rd level of Qi refining. He failed to call for help in time and was cut down by a single stroke. By the time the other brothers arrived upon hearing the commotion, his body was already cold. 3 figures flickered as they departed. In the treetops, Shun Lian cautiously peered out, a cold smile gracing his lips. He silently descended from above, his body transforming into countless phantoms, eerily trailing the 3. Chapter 29. Taking action, seizing opportunities. The 3, driven by anger and urgency, relentlessly pursued their so-called enemy, unaware that the harbinger of death had already arrived behind them. Shun Lian employed the Lingbo Weibu technique, transforming into an invisible wind, moving without a sound. In no time, he caught up to the last man in the line. The blue jade sword materialized in his right hand, with a glint of coldness in his gaze. He wasted no words before delivering a fatal strike. To conclude the matter swiftly, he had already harnessed the essence of sword intent in his approach. Whoosh! A faint sound of slicing through the air resonated. The last man halted mid-stride, unable to utter a scream before being cleaved in 2, blood gushing forth. Someone, be cautious. The 2 in front, alerted by the sudden change, instinctively turned their heads, before they could discern Shun Lian's appearance. A flash of blue sword light surged toward them like lightning. Shun Lian, having dispatched one foe, did not pause even for a moment, as the 2 turned. He had already advanced to confront the second. The blue jade sword pivoted and slashed horizontally. The adversary, caught off guard, drew his longsword to parry, but alas, he wielded nothing more than a common steel blade. Against the blue jade sword, which could slice through iron like mud, it was futile, clang, like cutting through paper. The blue jade sword met no resistance, effortlessly severing the opponent's weapon. Following this was the sight of a severed head soaring into the air, accompanied by a torrential downpour of blood. The last man, at a distance, had initially intended to assist his comrade, but upon witnessing this gruesome spectacle, he was seized by terror and immediately retreated, fleeing hastily. Only after covering a considerable distance did he dare glance back at Shun Lian. You scoundrel! Who are you? Does your Qingyan sect only strike from the shadows? Seeing his companion felled like a mere vegetable, the youth was paralyzed with fear, his heart racing with dread. Yet, the thought of retreating left him feeling unsatisfied. He secretly calculated the distance between himself and Shun Lian, believing that even if Shun Lian continued to attack, he would be able to react in time and would not fall easily into his trap. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and began to curse loudly. Shun Lian, with a calm gaze, paid no heed to his words. Turning away to habitually collect the spoils of war, he retrieved storage bags from the two corpses and tucked them away. Witnessing this scene, the young man grew even more furious, yet felt utterly powerless. He could only vent his frustration by cursing, "Damn it, a despicable villain who resorts to cowardly ambushes. Dare you reveal your name? My Thunder Valley will never let you escape. Is that so?" Shun Lian replied, stowing the storage bags and lazily glancing back. "In truth, aside from ambushes, my direct combat abilities are quite formidable as well. Why not come over and test me?" The young man's words faltered, nearly choking on his own bravado. What a joke! He was not foolish. From the moment Shun Lian struck, he realized the terrifying strength he possessed, and he knew he stood no chance of victory. How could he dare to return and face him? Seeing him fall silent, Shun Lian flashed a grin, exposing his white teeth, and said nonchalantly, "Too scared, then? Run away." "What?" The young man was taken aback. Before he could process this, Shun Lian suddenly moved, his figure transforming into a blur as he rapidly closed the distance. Startled, the young man dared not utter another word and promptly turned to flee in a panic. He had never imagined that as a cultivator at the 9th level of chi refinement, on the very first day of entering the secret realm, he would be fleeing like a frightened dog. He was so terrified that he summoned every ounce of strength he had. Yet, even with that effort, the distance between him and Shun Lian continued to diminish. The Lingbo Weibo, rated as an advanced human-level movement technique by the system, was not to be taken lightly. Even without considering its ability to confuse the enemy with illusions, its speed was undeniably among the finest beneath the Foundation establishment stage. Although the young man's movement technique was commendable, it paled in comparison to Lingbo Weibo. Within half a T's worth of time, the distance that had begun at 100 meters steadily shrank, and now Shun Lian was less than 10 meters away. "You bastard, stop chasing me." I. The young man was drenched in cold sweat. Realizing he could not escape, he clenched his teeth, his eyes revealing a glimmer of madness. "How dare you think I fear you? I will fight you to the end." With a surge of spiritual energy, the young man suddenly turned, and dimly, it seemed as if a bright moon was rising behind him. Cornered with no other choice, he unleashed his strongest move. To his surprise, it seemed to resonate with the essence of the sword technique. In that fleeting moment, the fusion of spirit and energy reached an unprecedented level, amplifying the power of the moonlight dramatically. Sensing this, a glimmer of hope ignited in his eyes. Perhaps this extraordinary display could indeed slay his opponent? He thought with excitement. Unfortunately, as this thought formed in his mind, the next moment, whoosh, the sword light flashed. The young man's body suddenly froze in place. Behind him, the round moon had only risen halfway before it violently shattered and disappeared. "I had already told you that my combat prowess is quite formidable," Shun Lian said calmly. Bang! As his words fell, the young man's body erupted, splitting in two and collapsing to the ground. Blood swiftly dyed a large area of the ground crimson. Shun Lian's gaze remained tranquil, indifferent to the surrounding stench of blood, as he approached and searched carefully for a moment. Confirming that the opponent had indeed discarded his storage bag and left no treasures behind, he stood up, preparing to return and retrieve the storage bag. However, just as he took a step forward, suddenly, the space around him shook violently, an overwhelming pressure enveloping him, instantly freezing Shun Lian in place. He stood rigidly, unable to move even a finger. Only his eyes could slowly turn, betraying a hint of terror. What is happening? What on earth is going on? Shun Lian was filled with confusion. He had never experienced such a terrifying oppressive aura, even from his master during the Golden Core stage. It had completely surpassed his imagination. Buzz! The space suddenly trembled lightly, and then, Shun Lian's figure abruptly vanished, as if he had never existed. Only the two halves of the still warm corpse remained in place. Chapter 30. Secrets of the Cave Heaven, Spirits of the Blessed Land before him. The light and shadows shifted, and it felt as though he had returned to the void tunnel he had entered at the start of the secret realm. Before Shun Lian could carefully sense his surroundings, the pressure around him gradually dissipated. Then, his vision cleared, and he found himself in an entirely new space. Red silk curtains swayed gently with a breeze, producing a melodious sound from wind chimes. It seemed to be a bedroom. More precisely, judging by the color and arrangement of the window drapes, it appeared to be a young woman's boudoir. In front of the bed, a delicate small cauldron was placed on a table, wisps of blue smoke curling upwards, exuding a faint floral fragrance. The ground was made of an unknown type of jade stone, radiating warmth as he stepped on it. The walls were adorned with golden lacquer patterns, embedded with numerous agate gems. A soft, warm light illuminated the entire room, allowing him to see his surroundings clearly without the aid of a torch. How did I suddenly end up in this place? Did I trigger some sort of formation? Is this place still within the secret realm? Shun Lian surveyed the room, his mind filled with numerous questions. Alas, I have yet to retrieve the storage bag that fellow discarded. What a significant loss it is. Reflecting on the details prior to my traversal through space, Shun Lian suddenly recalled that he had just slain the last disciple of Thunder Valley and had not yet returned to collect the storage bag before being pulled here by a mysterious force. And he couldn't help but lament the missed opportunity. Oh, you amusing little one, showing no fear in this unfamiliar place, and instead fixating on that meager spirit stone. Should I commend your audacity or question your intellect? Suddenly, a melodious giggle echoed. The voice was sweet and enchanting. Upon turning, Shun Lian discovered a petite figure on the bed behind him, seemingly a young girl of 7 or 8 years, yet adorned with pointed fox ears and a fluffy tail that playfully swayed behind her. She wore a colorful skirt, barefoot and kicking about in the air, her chin resting on her hands as she blinked her large eyes at Shun Lian with an adorable gaze. Little sister, was that you speaking just now? Shun Lian inquired softly. How presumptuous. Who dares call me little sister? I am older than your grandmother, so address me as Lady Fox Immortal, the little girl exclaimed, her eyes widening in indignation. Shun Lian observed her fiery demeanor, reminiscent of a child feigning adult anger. The more she attempted to appear mature, the more endearing she became. However, in this enigmatic setting, the sudden appearance of such a mysterious girl prompted Shun Lian to exercise caution. After a brief contemplation, he nodded with determination and respectfully declared, I pay my respects to Lady Fox Immortal. Well, that is satisfactory, the little girl replied, her lips curling into a sweet smile, seemingly pleased with Shun Lian's response. After a moment, she boldly stated, you seem quite sensible. Here, you were yearning for that trivial spirit stone, so take this. With a flick of her hand, a storage bag appeared in her palm, which she tossed to Shun Lian. Shun Lian quickly caught it, eyeing her with suspicion. The little girl continued, stop guessing. This is the very storage bag you failed to retrieve. I have brought it for you, so express your gratitude. Thank you. Lady Fox Immortal. Shun Lian instinctively nodded, opening the storage bag to inspect its contents, finding the Thunder Valley Disciple's token inside, confirming its authenticity, which ignited a multitude of speculations in his mind. While pondering, he began to organize the items within the storage bag, transferring them all into his own. He then retrieved 2 additional storage bags he had yet to examine, laying out all their contents for sorting. TSK. The little girl observed Shun Lian's actions with a shake of her head, unable to restrain herself from murmuring, has the cultivation world fallen to such a state? How pitiful. With a soft sigh, she could no longer bear to watch, flipping her hand to throw a ring towards Shun Lian. Here, this is a storage ring. Stop fussing with that shabby storage bag of yours. It's a nuisance. Shun Lian was taken aback, and upon receiving the ring, instinctively infused it with spiritual energy for refinement. As it was an unclaimed object, the process was remarkably smooth, completing in the blink of an eye. Immediately, he discovered a vast storage space in his mind, its area several dozen times larger than his own storage pouch. With a mere thought, the items in his hand were effortlessly transferred into it. Retrieving objects was equally simple. With just a thought, there was no need to rummage through a storage pouch. This remarkable storage ring was undoubtedly worth as much as a top-tier spiritual artifact. In an instant, Shun Lian made his judgment, elated, and transferred all his possessions into the storage ring, sincerely thanking the little girl. Well, it's just a trinket. Nothing to fuss about. The little girl waved her hand dismissively. Shun Lian secured his belongings and, after a moment of contemplation, tentatively inquired, Dear Fox Fairy, might you enlighten me as to where we are? Hee, you finally couldn't restrain yourself from asking. I was curious how long you could hold out. The little girl chuckled. This is the heart of the Qinghuan Blessed Land. Without my permission, no one can enter. The only outcome of a forced intrusion is the destruction of the Blessed Land. The Qinghuan Blessed Land? A look of confusion crossed Shun Lian's face. The little girl continued. It is what you refer to as a secret realm. Those old fools have no vision and carelessly named it. If it weren't for fulfilling my master's dying wish to find a worthy successor, I wouldn't have allowed them to enter. Listening to the little girl's words, Shun Lian was filled with astonishment. He immediately recalled the elders' introduction to the secret realm before coming here. Their ancestral master of the Qingyun sect had stumbled upon this place, and subsequently collaborated with the Thunder Valley to explore it together. Yet, the implication from the little girl was that she had intentionally allowed those people to enter. You have been aware of our exploration in the secret realm all along? Shun Lian asked. Of course, the little girl replied. If I hadn't secretly assisted in opening it, How could you have so easily entered the blessed land? Initially, I hoped to gradually select a worthy successor, but to my dismay, after hundreds of years, all who have entered are worthless. Their cultivation methods are incomplete, and not a single one has reached full mastery. I even began to regret whether I had made a mistake in opening it. So many treasures given away over the years, though they are mere refuse, they are still assets of the blessed land. Nevertheless, I am relieved to finally have you here. My resources were not squandered. Me? Shun Lian exclaimed, astonished, pointing to himself. Indeed, the little girl nodded but then furrowed her brow, murmuring, "You are rather peculiar. Despite your apparent lack of talent and mediocre cultivation methods, you have somehow reached the level of full mastery. How did you cultivate?" Shun Lian was at a loss for words.